Hi guys, welcome back to another exciting video, so sit back, relax, and let's get started. After making their way out of the shipwreck zone, Izuku had taken the time to use the to completely freeze over the water, further trapping the already immobilized villains. Doesn't hurt to be extra careful. Hilda smiled as the group of four looked over their handiwork. And I think I'm starting to handle my powers a little better. That was a good 15% of my full strength. I know I wasn't showing it, but I was nervous about all those villains, so you admitted. Yeah, I just about almost whipped myself. Minoru added in agreement. But now I'm not so scared anymore after I saw how cool you guys were just now. We should probably prioritize getting help or maybe even taking out the warp villain, the one who called himself Kurogiri, Izuku said. We should also try to avoid the center, where all the real action is. To be honest, between Aizawa-sensei, Sister Sage, and Captain Falcon, I'd be surprised if they aren't dealing with the ringleader right about now. That creepy guy with all the severed hands on his costume. Suyu noted. You mean that Tamura Shigaraki guy? Hilda asked before holding a finger to her cute double chin. Yeah, they definitely are kicking a lot of butt and they also have each other's backs. So that shouldn't be a problem either. The one that worries me is the large villain that was brought in, Izuku noted. Shigaraki suggested it was being saved for All Might, but with the other villains being used to lure him here, what's to stop him from unleashing it early if they no longer have value as a lure? Well, most of those punks looked like they were just street creeps at best, and a few even looked young enough to be high school or college dropouts. Suyu pointed out. I guess it makes sense they're being taken down so easily. They haven't had any real training with their quirks. Shoto had finished freezing the remaining villains in the landslide zone, looking in disdain at just how easy it was for them to go down. This is why the hero course system has been refined, to keep out those who are untrained in the use of their quirks. But rather than choose a more suitable path, you let yourselves be drawn in by the allure of a villain's life. Seeing one villain who wasn't completely frozen, Shoto approached him with a menacing glare, making the man nearly wet himself. Listen well, if you stay frozen like that, your cells will slowly die. You'll soon succumb to frostbite and hypothermia. Now, as a young man striving to become a hero, I'd prefer that not happen. I'd like to avoid unnecessary cruelty. Oh God, have mercy. Please, I'll tell you anything. Shoto nodded. Good. Now tell me, how does your boss intend to kill All Might? Penny, Denki, Momo, and Kyoyuka were together in the mountain zone, fending off the various villains approaching them. Penny had scanned Kyoyuka's quirk, allowing her to create giant speakers from her shoulders that fired massive bursts of sound, stunning the villains and allowing Denki to shock them unconscious with his own quirk. Everyone, I am receiving a call from Todoroki on our communication earpieces. Penny suddenly alerted. Listen up, none of these villains are elite threats. They're just high school dropouts and street thugs recruited as fodder. That large black monster they came with is the one who's supposed to kill All Might. So we just gotta avoid the ringleaders in the center, right? So long as we do that, we should come out of this alive. Denki noted. Momo was disabling most of the villains with capture weapons such as bolas and nets, while Kyoyuka plugged her earlobes into various speakers along her costume to unleash a stunning sound wave from her own heartbeat, paralyzing several more villains. Why bother recruiting from the gutter? Kyoyuka asked. Wouldn't it be more efficient to have that Kurogiri guy use his warp quirk to break into Tartarus for stronger villains? Tartarus has walls made of telekill alloy. Perhaps his quirk isn't strong enough to bypass it. Momo pointed out before undoing the magnetic clamps on the back of her costume, creating a large insulating blanket for her and Kyoyuka. The reason she did this was that Penny had also scanned Denki and had transformed her hands into electric generating spikes that she stabbed into the ground, charging up as Denki joined her, channeling electricity from his body and into her. The thing about my quirk is, it makes me a human taser, but I can only control where the electricity comes from, not where it goes. If I went all out, I might accidentally hit my classmates. But it still works like normal electricity, so things like rubber or other insulators are immune. Denki smirked. And from what I'm seeing right now, none of you creeps even thought to have wood for armor coating. Penny's eyes lit up brightly as she pumped the electricity Denki provided her through her Tesla coil spikes and through the entire ground, sending a massive shockwave of electricity that completely paralyzed the entire group of villains. Kyoyuka smirked as she peeked out from under the blanket. They didn't even have rubber soles on their boots. Bunch of edgelords thinking it was cool to have metal-studded ones. That was cool? Denki slurred, half-dazed. The drawback of his quirk is that it shorted out his brain if he went over his wattage limit. Thankfully, Penny helping channel his electricity only made him partially affected. Falcon Punch. Captain Falcon delivered a super powerful punch that ignited the hydrogen in the air, creating the fiery symbol of a falcon as he launched several villains away. This was thanks to his quirk, which allowed him to move his body at speeds faster than normal. Not only could he run faster than a high-speed motorcycle, but he could also punch and kick so fast and so hard that it ignited the hydrogen in the air, granting him limited pyrokinesis. As Tsunade finished judo flipping a villain on his head, she noticed Aizawa taking a moment to let his eyes rest, leaving him open. This of course allowed Tamura to charge forward, hand outstretched. SHOTA look out. With the speed of a ninja, Tsunade zipped in front of Tamura, dodging his hand and then using her quirk to enhance her own body, harnessing her bioelectricity to strike Tamura in the back of the neck, sending the electricity coursing through his nervous system. Nervous system rupture. Oh crap. Status ailments are the worst, especially paralysis. Tamura cried out as his body locked up from his nervous system going out of control. Normally allowed Tsunade to heal others with a touch through biological manipulation, but she had learned to apply it to herself to increase her strength. Add that to other forms of training such as the use of chakra and the ways of haki, and she was one of the strongest women around. Nearby, Izuku, Tsuyu, Minoru, and Hilda had approached in order to see how things were going. Izuku noticed Tamura falling to the floor as he tried to fix his nervous system, touching the ground and creating a small pit in the process. Looks like a 5-point contact quirk, but he can't turn it off the way Ururaka can. Hilda nodded. Seems a bit weird that he doesn't know how to control his own quirk. Unless it's not natural, don't you think? Hey, don't those shoes look familiar to you? Tsuyu asked as everyone saw the red boots Tamura was wearing. Oh yeah, they're the same brand Midoriya wears. Minoru realized. Izuku nodded. Yeah, my powers don't come from a quirk. I'm still essentially quirkless, so I have an extra toe joint, meaning normal shoes are too tight for me. So one shoe company made a particular brand of shoe designed for quirkless people to walk around more comfortably. You know, it slipped our minds on the first day that Aizawa-sensei actually implied your powers weren't technically a quirk. Tsuyu admitted. Guess that Shigaraki guy wasn't as tough as we thought he was, Hilda said. He was trying to go for a cheap shot and take out Aizawa-sensei, but Tsunade-sensei stopped him. Tamura eventually managed to realign his nervous system, but his body still ached as it tried to adjust itself, grumbling as he dusted himself off. That was stupid of me, rushing in like some noob. I'd forgotten the genre. This isn't a turn-based RPG. This is an MMO raid. Of course, one of the others was going to rush in to help. He then motioned for his monster to approach. I was hoping to save our heavy hitter for the final boss, but I suppose it couldn't hurt to give him a little more XP before taking on All Might. Meanwhile, Kurogiri had to face down 13 and Sabrina, and much like Tamura, he was having trouble due to being hit from 2 different angles. He was getting sucked in by, drawing off much of his mist, and when he tried to use his own quirk, Sabrina used one of her psychic attacks with her quirk to prevent him from focusing properly. I have no choice but to break off, he said when he noticed Tenya making a rush for the exit. If that brat escapes, he could attract the attention of far more than just All Might. He tried to rush off, only for Shaoji to tackle him and wrap his arms around his form. Midoriya noted that you still have a physical form under all the mist. With that knowledge, it's a simple matter of containing you. Kurogiri's eyes widened. How could you have possibly? He then noticed Shaoji's earpiece and it all made sense. The one they had hired to jam communications was only meant to jam outgoing signals. Not suspecting that the heroes would provide the students with a means of keeping contact with each other long distance. Acting quickly, Kurogiri warped himself out of Shaoji's hold, only to get tagged by Ochako, sending him helplessly into the air. From there he could see Tenya prying the door open and tried to extend himself to warp him away, only to be yanked off by Siro's tape and pulled down and swung around by Rikadu. Damn, these brats are too strong. Sensei should have had us study their quirks while we were grabbing files. The one with the engines is getting away. Tenya managed to completely get the doors all the way open and ran outside, his classmates cheering him on as he used his highest gear to speed off back to UA. He's gone to call for backup. It's game over. Kurogiri sighed bitterly. I'll just have to trust that only All Might will come. At least we can continue our plan, barring any further unforeseen complications. In a dark lair, a shadowy figure sat on a floating throne as he surveyed the USJ from a glowing golden window of energy. On his left hand was an ornate gauntlet with 6 glowing stones, the yellow one in the center of the gauntlet glowing and connected to the window. On his right hand, a blazing red omega symbol was carved onto the back, and the only other light about him was his red glaring eyes. Pure evil is that which cannot accept that it is evil, or that good exists, the figure said. But good and evil must continue to both exist and oppose each other, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Suddenly, from one of the 9 dishes that sat in front of him, flames and ash built up before forming a construct of one of his children, the Batman who laughs. How is the boy doing? Not terribly, father. It seems the heroes were able to anticipate his schemes. No doubt thanks to the foresight of the Oracle, Lady Shibabawa. Still, to Tamura's credit, he knows how to adapt under pressure. Right now he's using the Nomu early to counter the combined forces of Eraserhead, Sister Sage, and Captain Falcon. We shall see how your brother's little experiment handles itself, the shadowy figure said. What of the gutter trash that had been hired? Most of those useless little pawns are already detained. A few stragglers are still fighting, mostly due to being well suited to the environments they were dropped on. But it seems the class is able to communicate thanks to short-range earpieces that escaped notice. Laughs chuckled. It won't be long before they start to regroup. In that case, make sure that Tamura manages to safely escape. His destiny should not end so soon before it has had time to develop properly. The shadowy figure said, many can try to change destiny, and some will indeed succeed. But nobody can change the destiny of budding evil. So says Thanoseid. In the ruins zone, Katsuki, Kirby, and Ijiru had already knocked out most of the villains. Kirby was using her stone copy ability, hardening her body in pure rock to increase her strength and defense, while Katsuki casually grabbed one last villain who tried to pounce on him from behind and blast him point blank in the face with his explosion. Most of our classmates are taking down the other villains. Gotta say, they're much weaker than I thought they were gonna be. Ijiru noted. Most new villain organizations recruit from the lowest parts of society. The hero washouts, the ostracized, the homeless, you get the idea, Katsuki explained. It's easy for some big-shot villain to bring these extras into the fold with promises of home, family, and anything else society may have been unable to provide for them. Wow, you're a lot more calm and rational than I took you for, Ijiru said. Fuck you, shitty hair. I'm always calm and rational, Katsuki snapped. Kirby giggled as she turned back to normal. Not until you first met me. That is. Katsuki gave his girlfriend an annoyed look before huffing as he began leaving the building they were in. We need to take down that warp fucker. That way, we can stop the rest of these losers from escaping. Our classmates can handle the rest of the trash. Ijiru grinned as his arms hardened into gauntlets, which he then punched together. Awesome. That's thinking like a man. In the conflagration zone, Aojiro was nimbly parkering through the burning streets as dragons made of fire seemed to follow him. He then flipped in the air and landed on the ground as the dragons snaked around him in a protective manner as Ben walked up, flames surrounding his body. I love it when I'm in my element. Ben chuckled as his palms lit up with pure heat. At least save some for me to take down too, Aojiro pointed out dryly. Ben smirked. Don't worry, Mashiro. Even I know that sharing is caring. Heaven's spear kick. Tsunade delivered a powerful diving kick to the monster known as Nomu, but it barely even flinched. Captain Falcon had hit it with his Falcon Punch, but it barely budged, only leaving a small burnt spot that quickly healed itself. Aizawa tried using his capture scarf to reel it in, but it simply pulled and threw him on his back hard. Kurogiri soon reappeared beside Tamura, who was busy watching the three pros struggle against the beast. I wasn't able to kill 13 or Sabrina, and one of the students escaped to get back up. Game over for sure now, Tamura scowled, lightly scratching his neck with 3 of his fingers, a habit he had developed to ensure he wouldn't kill himself with his own quirk. We can't win if they throw dozens of pro heroes at us, even if All Might does show up. Damn it. This was my chance to prove myself. Should we retreat? Tamura shook his head. Not yet. After this, they'll beef up security, making the level that much harder. We won't get a second chance. How's the rest of the party? Probably not doing as well as we'd hoped. It turns out the class was given short-range earpieces, and our jammer is only good for external communication. They knew we were planning an attack. No doubt thanks to the prophetic powers of the Oracle Lady Shibabawa. So that's it. They're gonna leave? Minoru asked hopefully. No, something is wrong, Tsuyu said, unable to shake the gut feeling in her stomach. We can still clear a side quest at the very least, Tamura said before turning toward Izuku's group dangerously. Nomu, get away from the pros and stalk the students. Kill as many as you can. Tamura then made a mad dash for Hilda, her eyes widening in horror as he reached out for her, one of his eyes peeking from behind the hand covering his face, showing pure deranged madness. Let's use this opportunity to crush All Might's pride as the so-called symbol of peace. Before Tamura could reach for Hilda, he was suddenly punched in the face hard by a scaly fist coated in armament hack, sending him flying and loosening the hand on his face as he was sent flying back, blood pouring down his nose as he stared at Izuku. The green-haired boy had transformed himself and was now looming over the villain with a furious glare. Don't hurt my friends, he roared. Room. Using the Izuku created a massive room that spanned the entire plaza before using to harness light in his hands. Due to the drawback of only being able to use one of each devil fruit category at a time, Izuku was definitely straining his body but pushed through, knowing he needed to protect his friends. At first I thought you were too tough to take on, Izuku admitted, sweat pouring down his face. But now that I've gotten a better idea of how your quirk works, you're surprisingly easy to beat. Wah. Tamura began only to be cut off as Izuku formed a sword of solid sharpened light. Amano Murakumo. The villain screamed as Izuku swung the light sword with blinding speeds, slicing off both his hands at the wrists. and using the rune to telekinetically pull them into his hand, dispelling the light sword so he could switch to and burn the severed hands to ash. Tamura fell on his ass and scuffled away in shock before looking to see that his stumps weren't bleeding. In fact, they were simply hollow holes now. He shakily got up to his feet while glaring at Izuku. Damn it, this bastard is a final boss of his own. He urgently turned to Kurogiri. Kurogiri, forget the side quest, we need to. Suddenly, the doors that Tenya had previously pried open to escape through were punched off their hinges as a familiar massive figure stepped into the fray, an enraged glare on his face. The hero students and teachers smiled in relief while Tamura growled in frustration. Now the final boss shows up. Right as our party is depleted, everything is fine now. Why? Because I am here. Tsunade just smirked. Took you long enough, Toshi. Izuku took the time to deactivate all the devil fruits he had used, falling to his knees and breathing heavily. Sweat pouring down his face as Hilda, Tsuyu, and Minoru moved to support him, all of them looking up in relief to see All Might had arrived. I was starting to get concerned when we couldn't get through to the USJ, so I decided to see if anything was wrong. Imagine my surprise to see young Ader rushing out with a look of abject terror on his face. I must admit, even though we expected this attack, we never could have anticipated it would have such a large scope, and all for the sake of killing me. I don't know whether to feel honored or insulted. Yeah, turns out a lot of people seem to hate you, Toshi. Tsunade joked. All Might chuckled before looking over the number of villains that had already been defeated. Though you fiends seem to go for quantity over quality. My students are only just starting to learn how to use their quirks, and yet they mopped the floor with your organization. His eyes then locked on the Nomu and tore off his jacket and blazer. And I'm going to guess this just leaves the big guy as your trump card against me. Whatever it is, it's not human, Aizawa said as he was helped up off the ground by Captain Falcon. I tried erasing whatever its quirk was, but it just kept coming. Whatever its power is, it can absorb impacts, Captain Falcon added. I gave it one of my strongest Falcon punches, but it didn't even flinch. All Might nodded. Right, first things first. With blinding speed, he took out the remaining villains in the center area before they could even think to gang up on him. During the brief melee, the severed hand covering Tamura's face, already loosened by the punch Izuku gave him, fell off. He quickly struggled to hold it in his arms since he no longer had his hands to help. This is all wrong. Father, he's even stronger and faster than he should be. Of course, a government hero relies on violence. He's only a little slower than he used to be. The young villain scowled bitterly. Sensei thought he might be getting weaker, but from what I saw, that's only tangibly true. Izuku had heard Tamura's ramblings and was confused by what he was talking about. How was he able to know about All Might's injury and the fact he wasn't as strong as he used to be? Carolina's smash, All Might called out, charging to take out Tamura with a cross chop. However, the Nomu quickly got in front of him and tanked the blow, the shockwave passing by it harmlessly. If your friends couldn't make it budge, what makes you think you can? Tamura taunted. Namu's was made perfectly for thugs like you. Still, it seems he's moving much faster than we expected for a man past his prime, Kurogiri noted. How could his wound have healed so thoroughly? I don't know where you're getting your information, but I've been hale and hearty these last 5 years. Try watching the news sometime. I've been very proactive in the media. All Might said as he got around behind the Nomu and started to suplex him. If this guy was your big plan to kill me, then you'll need far more than just endurance. Tamura suddenly smirked. Actually, he was just the distraction. Kurogiri, do it now. To All Might's surprise, Nomu grabbed his abdomen as he found himself sinking into a warp gate, wincing at Namu's fingers piercing into his flesh on the left side, drawing blood. Toshi, Tsunade cried out. A good effort, but Nomu was designed to be as strong as you are. And it looks like he found your weak spot, too. Tamura mocked. Doesn't it look like far too little blood is being shed? Kurogiri asked. I was certain he had taken a hard injury to that location 5 years ago. Yeah, and he's still strong enough that the Nomu can't get a good grip on him. Tamura agreed. We'll have to finish this before All Might can break its grip. I normally dislike having blood or viscera in my warp gate, but for this one time, I'll make an exception, Kurogiri said as the Nomu managed to pull All Might into the warp, stopping halfway. You're too fast for the human eye to see, so the Nomu had to have you restrained. Once you're halfway through, I'll squeeze the gate shut, cutting you in half. I'm going to enjoy being the one to end you once and for all. That's all fine and dandy, but do you really think my fellow heroes and students will just stand by and let you kill me? Before Kurogiri could make any sort of reply, a massive explosion hit his metal collar. It was Katsuki, who grabbed the collar and pinned Kurogiri to the ground. Kirby and Ijuru had also arrived right behind him. Nice collar, asshole. So I guess this is where your real body is being protected. A sudden sheet of ice hit the Nomu, freezing 2 of its limbs and forcing it to let go of All Might. We came here as part of rescue training, Shoto noted as he approached. I guess helping to rescue the #1 hero makes for a good start. One of your poorly trained thugs told me the whole plan. Here we are to the rescue. Ben shouted as he rushed in like a speeding bullet with jets of highly pressurized air from his feet, pulling All Might free with surprising strength and away from the Nomu and Warp Gate. Thanks for the assist, young Torkuroshi, All Might said before checking his side. Good, the pain's only transient. The way that thing was squeezing me, I was almost afraid I'd lose my spleen. Want me to heal it for you? Ben asked, his hands glowing with a mixture of red, yellow, and orange. No need, my boy. I'm still raring to go, the symbol of peace said as he got up and faced Tamura. I couldn't help but overhear your comment earlier about government heroes turning to violence. But you should realize a hero isn't just about punching a villain's lights out and calling it a day. We also have to be there to keep civilians safe and remove them from danger. That's why people cheer for us when we're forced to use violence against the bad guys. Tamura sighed angrily. Well, you've got me on that one. I had this whole speech planned out about the nature of how heroes operate versus how villains operate. Complete bullshit, of course, and we can both admit to that. But part of the plan for killing you off was demoralizing you. After all, you can't just kill off the symbol of peace and expect the world to destabilize. Killing a man is easy. Killing an icon. Now there's the real trick. 'Cause when you kill one symbol of peace, another one eventually rises up to take their place. As Tamura continued speaking, his voice started to become contemplative. He rubbed his neck with his handle stump, a look of deep thought on his face. Yeah, I get it now. What the knights were trying to tell me. I thought Sensei's plan was bizarre, but when I voice it out loud, I can understand it. The knights. Tsunade's eyes then widened. What would the Dark Knights have with this? Izuku was also shocked. The Dark Knights were a group of notorious villains who had been around since the dawn of quirks. Nobody knew how they were immortal since they all had different and unique quirks, but they had been wreaking havoc across the world, bedeviling heroes throughout the ages. Unless ... your sensei is who I think he is. All Might realized with dawning horror. I've given all the hints I'm willing to divulge, Tamura said. But man, Kurogiri's so weak. I can't believe he let a brat trap him so easily. Ijiru smirked. Your friend here just got careless. Bakugo knew how to catch him off guard. Kurogiri only turned certain parts of his body into mist, Izuku explained. Mostly his limbs and head. But he expanded them to keep his real body hidden. Yet no matter how far he expanded, that metal collar was always visible. Ha, that's my Izu. Hilda smiled, pulling her best friend into a one-armed hug. Nothing escapes his analytical eye. Honestly, why didn't they even think to grab the student files? Minoru asked Tsuyu. I mean, we talked about this earlier back on the shipwreck zone. You know, I actually suggested that to Sensei, Tamura pointed out, making Minoru yelp with fear at being overheard. He insisted that first-year high school students were no threat and that the villains we enlisted were already proven killers. As much as I like the idea of killing the #1 hero, I get the feeling Sensei is a bit too obsessed with pulling it off. Seems like the student is wiser than the master in this case, Captain Falcon noted. But don't think I'm giving up yet. This quest hasn't even come close to being finished. Tamura suddenly grinned. Nomu, rescue Kurogiri. Much to everyone's shock, the Nomu began tearing itself out of the warp gate, its limbs being pulled off by the ice. Minoru almost fainted and Kirby covered her mouth to keep herself from throwing up. Does that thing even feel pain? Hilda gawked. Tamura chuckled. It's likely in extreme agony, but it's able to ignore the pain. See, isn't Namu's only quirk ... he also has. These two quirks make him strong enough to even take on All Might at 100% of his power. Think of him as a highly efficient punching bag that can punch right back. As Tamura said all this, the Namu's lost limbs regenerated, starting with muscle tissue, then bone, and finally skin. The beast let out a victorious howl before barreling toward Katsuki's group, intent on crushing them and rescuing Kurogiri. Look out, Kirby cried as Ijiru got in front of his friends, hardening himself in an effort to protect them. Luckily, All Might quickly raced in front of the Namu's pathway, getting the students out of the way before tanking the hit himself. The force of it blew him backward and tore apart his undershirt. But other than that, he stayed on his feet and didn't even look remotely injured. Looks like straight up force with you isn't enough to take me on. Strong as me at 100%. You say, maybe so, but unlike me, its strength isn't variable, All Might said as he rushed back toward the Nomu. Izuku and Hilda's eyes widened in amazement when they saw their mentor's fists become coated in a familiar metallic black substance. All Might can use HAKI. This high school has had one saying, go beyond, plus ultra. Did you know that it started when I graduated from this very alma mater? It's a saying I used all the time to push myself forward, to forever move past my limits. In time, the school used that very idea as a means to improve its students' body. All Might declared as he and the Nomu traded blows, the sheer speed and force picking up a wind current around them. However, All Might's strength was far greater than the Nomu's and it slowly began faltering until finally, the symbol of peace broke through its defenses and began barraging its entire body with armament haki enhanced blows. Now let me show you just what it means to go beyond, plus ultra. With one last mighty punch, All Might sent the Nomu rocketing out of the USJ. The sheer speeds the monster was going at breaking through the clouds as it sailed off into the distance. He completely overwhelmed shock absorption, Kurogiri said in shock. And that power, it's far beyond what we were told. Has his power even dropped a little in 5 years? Tamura asked in furious disbelief. Sensei's clearly working off of outdated information. My power did indeed drop significantly, All Might said as he took a breather, steam pouring off him. Back in my heyday, I could have easily taken that beast out with 5 or 10 blows tops. But even with armament haki, I needed 100 mighty blows to send it flying. Meanwhile, back in the mountain zone, one final villain known as Tesla had gotten the drop on Momo, Kyoyuka, Denki, and Penny. Thankfully, Sabrina had already arrived on the scene just as Tesla grabbed Denki by surprise and held him hostage. So, psychic versus electric, huh? Tesla said as he used his quirk to channel electricity through his free hand. Let's see who wins this battle. It ain't gonna be you. Sabrina smirked as her psychic wristbands glowed with green energy. Confusion. Sabrina fired a telekinetic force blast from her wristbands that turned from green to purple, hitting Tesla and dazing him greatly as he let go of Denki. Sabrina then rocketed herself forward like a human cannonball, slamming Tesla with her big belly before flipping into the air and sitting right on top of him, pinning him to the ground as he grunted in pain. I don't just rely on my quirk, I also know sumo and a couple of other martial arts. It pays to be big, beautiful, and hitting hard. She then got up off Tesla and grabbed him in a giant hand of telekinetic energy. And come to think of it, you're the creep who's been shorting out communications? Huh. Indeed, Penny concurred. I scanned him and his quirk is exactly the type that disrupted communications. Tesla grunted. I could have also done the same to those earpieces if I'd known about them prior to the job. Damn it, this should have been an easy gig. Just get in, wreck the place, maybe kill some of the students, and kill off All Might. But to be honest, I don't think I could have killed that kid over there. I've got a soft spot for fellow electric types. Denki rubbed the back of his head awkwardly, unsure whether to feel flattered or not. Shigaraki, the Nomu is gone, our allies have been defeated, and we're outnumbered 100 to 1, we must retreat, Kurogiri said urgently. Damn it, our walkthrough turned out to be useless and we blundered right into a hopeless boss fight. I can't even take satisfaction in killing anyone since I can't even use my quirk. Tamura cursed. Fine, let's get out of here. Kurogiri nodded and extended his body to warp himself and Tamura out of the USJ just as a familiar voice cried out. I am here with reinforcements, Tenya said, accompanied by the UA teachers. Sorry for being late. Present Mike was at the front of the charge and used his quirk to unleash a massive sonic attack at the first wave of recovering villains. Ectoplasm confronted a few more with his own quirk, which were created from a special substance ejected from his mouth. The clones could share knowledge and information with each other and the original. I'll need more XP in order to kill you, All Might. But perhaps my real nemesis. Tamura's eyes then locked with Izuku for the briefest moment before he and Kurogiri escaped. Should be allowed to gain more XP himself. And with that, the villains vanished, Snipe cursing as he missed hitting Tamura by a breath's width with a shot from his gun. While it wasn't the lesson the students had been looking forward to, the incident had been a real eye-opener. Class 1 will learn it firsthand just how dangerous villains could be, and just what heroes had to go through to keep people safe. Despite it all, the teachers were proud of one thing. The students were able to hold their own and even took out quite a number of villains in the process. Izuku was even congratulated for disabling Tamura, almost ensuring there would be no casualties. You really went out of your way to save me. Hilda smiled as she and Izuku sat together while their classmates chatted with each other. Thanks, I'll admit, I was scared when he got close. You're my best friend, Hilda. I couldn't let anybody hurt you, Izuku said, smiling back. Besides, that's what a hero does, right? Steps in to save the girl. Hilda smirked. And do you know what the girl does to thank the hero? Izuku was confused before Hilda suddenly pulled him close, kissing him on the lips gently. The boy's freckled face glowed bright red, his eyes widening before slowly closing as he accepted the kiss. Soon, the two broke away, Hilda pulling him into her embrace, resting his head on her breasts as her plump but gentle fingers stroked his bush of green hair. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that. Meanwhile, with the other students, Shoto noticed something. All the teachers are here, so the villains only attacked the USJ. They didn't even target the school. They didn't know that All Might would be there, Cementos said as he approached. For now we need everyone to return to the entrance and check in with Recovery Girl in case of injury. We've already called the police, and they'll be here shortly to round up the villains. Phew, after all that fighting for our lives, I'm starving, Kirby said in relief before pulling Katsuki close. Come on, handsome, let's gorge ourselves to celebrate. By ourselves, you mean mostly you. The explosive blonde grunted, but a small smile was clear on his face. You aren't too hurt, are you? Penny asked as she checked on Ben. You were right there in the thick of it. Relax, all I really did was burn a few villains with Mashiro. and then rescue All Might. What about you? I was with Yaoyorozu, Jiru, and Kaminari. We handled ourselves very well, all things considering. Ben smiled. Good, you being safe is the important thing to me. Well, that could have gone worse. Tamura had made it back to the bar, grumbling in fury. Waiting for him were the Dark Knights themselves. The Batman who laughs, Grim Knight, Red Death, Devastator, Merciless, Murder Machine, Drowned, and Dawnbreaker. I don't see how. I'm functionally quirkless. We lost all our underlings. The students were far stronger than Sensei expected. And worst of all Might wasn't weak in the slightest. He completely took out the Nomu. We failed. Batman, who laughed, suddenly cackled and with a skip and a slide, jumped into the bar stool next to Tamura as he patted him on the back. Only in your sensei's goals. But you did succeed in impressing us, at least. Merciless nodded in agreement before turning to a nearby TV, with the display reading sound only. You really underestimated your old foe. Brother, indeed. Clearly, I was working with outdated information. I had assumed the injury I dealt All Might 5 years ago would weaken him to the point where he could be worn down. But he was as strong as when we fought. A calm, sophisticated voice spoke from the TV. But I must ask, how did you find Tamura? He has potential, but not while he continues to learn under you and you alone. Father was already planning this, you see. Red Death said. You mean to take my student from me? The voice from the TV asked in annoyance. The boy could have easily come away with greater success if he hadn't followed your instructions exclusively. Drown pointed out. Because of your overzealousness, he can no longer use his quirks. A shame ... but there are other useful quirks to compensate for the loss of, I suppose. The voice on the TV relented. I'll have Tamura outfitted with a new quirk that will also help in replacing his lost hands. It won't be as potent as, but perhaps it's for the best. Hey, at least he won't have to use only 2 fingers to jerk himself off. Dawnbreaker snorted before wilting at the glares his siblings and Tamura were giving him. What? Was that too much? Moving on. I'd like to talk about this kid ... He had green hair and freckles and seemed to be able to transform into a dinosaur man. He was the one who cut off my hands when I tried going after his girlfriend. Strange ... If you're referring to Izuku Midoriya, he's registered as quirkless. The voice on the TV said. However, the Dark Knights had a clearer realization as they looked at each other nervously. The fruit of the devil ... It was found. Grim Knight asked in shock. And apparently that Midoriya boy ate it. Devastator added with a growl. Don't worry, Sibs. Laughs cackled. This is perfect. This fits right in with the destiny that has been set out for our boy, Tamura. Tamura didn't know the full details, but he did understand what the Dark Knights were thinking as he turned to the TV. Sensei, I know your history with OFA, but I feel as though Midoriya is meant to be my own nemesis. As grateful as I am for you taking me in, I feel I can learn more from the Knights. Sensei sighed on the other end of the TV. If you prefer, I won't be like your birth father and deny you what truly makes you happy or betters your life. Trust us, kid. We're gonna make you into something great. Dawnbreaker said as he slung a brotherly arm around Tamura's shoulder. And don't worry, we have just the way to counter that punk kid's powers ... But you need to be prepared for it first. When we're done with you, sonny boy, you'll be a villain even we will follow without question. Laugh said, grinning deviously but with pride as well. In the meantime, we must gather more elite soldiers, Sensei reminded from the TV. It's time we make a true league of villains. Man, we certainly got lucky with this one, Tsunade said as she checked on Toshinori's injuries. This could have been a whole lot worse if I hadn't been there. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Mei, and the others were there as well. Toshinori chuckled. You all did your best to stand by my side and save my life that day. The door opened and the two turned to see a familiar face walk in. Tsukachi, it's been a while. Toshinori smiled. Glad to see you both back in shape. Detective Naomasa, Tsukachi said. Toshinori nodded. I had to call in some of the things Rayleigh taught me that I'd almost forgotten to bypass its defenses. Luckily, he seems to be docile right now. It's possible his brain was wired to obey instructions from anyone who gave them. Naomasa said, but your class is truly amazing. Midoriya, Yasakani, Sakurai, Torkuroshi, Polendina, Bakugo, the entire class. They risked their lives making sure those villains wouldn't cause harm. It's not the lesson we were expecting to teach them. But those villains may have inadvertently galvanized the students' resolve, Tsunade said. They now know what it means to be a hero. And they'll be working harder than ever to achieve that goal. Toshinori sighed. I just hope our kids are ready for the fight ahead. Because with that Nomu's existence ... it all but confirms that he's still around, waiting to make his return. A few days after the events of the USJ, the teachers of UA were sitting in council with the S-rankers having been invited as well due to their close connections as Detective Tsukachi gave his report. So far our investigation into the League of Villains has turned up with no leads. A search of Shigaraki or Kurogiri has not shown anything, nor do we have anyone with a registered quirk matching theirs. Vlad King sighed. Most likely they're using aliases, meaning they aren't citizens. That attack on the USJ was too bold. The ringleader, Shigaraki, acted far too much like a stereotypical comic book supervillain. But he only bragged about the Nomu's powers, and when things didn't go his way, he got visibly upset. Toshinori noted. He also talked about Nomu like he was a pet or something. Great, so we got a total spoiled brat on our hands, groaned Tatsumaki, the second in command of the S-Rankers and one of the most powerful psychic quirk users in the world. But what about the rest of the League of Villains? Asked Puri Puri Prisoner. In total, we arrested 72 villains, all of them small-time thugs who usually lurked around back alleys. Detective Tsukachi said. Almost none of them had worked together before, yet this crazed man-child was able to get them all to follow his crazy plan. It's not too surprising. More heroes are showing up on the streets, and stronger ones at that. Captain Falcon noted. Plenty of villains are starting to feel the pressure. They're desperate for any cause to rally around, anything that would give them what they think is a better life. One thing's for sure though, Aizawa frowned. The next time we hear from the League of Villains, they're bound to have stronger members. And if it's true that Shigaraki is in league with the Dark Knights, Tsunade added, that just makes things worse. Shigaraki is in some ways much like our students. He has much potential in him, but requires guidance. It's likely that someone is teaching him. Nedzu noted. Toshinori looked deeply troubled, and I fear I know who that teacher might be. The very next day, Class 1 was buzzing with excitement. Man, I was scared to death. I thought that creepy guy was gonna kill Yasakani for sure, Minoru said to Denki and Shiro. But then Midoriya turns into this dinosaur man and summons a sword made of light and chopped his hands off like they were made of tissue paper. Well, we managed to make it out in one piece in the end. Ben sighed. Even with our skill sets, I shudder to think what would happen if they thought to counteract our powers. Fumikage nodded in agreement. Indeed, had the villains not been low tier, or had the target not been All Might, some of us might very well have lost their lives. Heads up, the hobo is coming. Izuku called out to his classmates, using the code phrase that Aizawa was arriving to get everyone in their seats just as he came into the classroom. You've been doing good so far in your training. Honestly, this is the longest I've gone without expelling at least one student. As scary as that is, what's coming up next should excite you. Ooh, what's it gonna be? Mina asked, excitement clear in her eyes. Are we gonna be training under the S-Rankers, working with heroes from overseas? Down, Mina, Ijuru awkwardly said to his best friend. Aizawa rolled his eyes. The UA Sports Festival is coming up. Oh right, we completely forgot this is also still a high school as well. Most of the class thought. Is it okay to have such an event right after villains attacked? Kayuka asked in slight worry. What if they attack us again during it? Aljiro questioned. Personally, I think it's irrational, but the school administration wanted the people to understand that the school was safer than ever and that the threat had been handled, Aizawa admitted. Just to be safe, multiple pro heroes have been called in for security purposes. So while I don't think it's a good idea personally, it's not like the school didn't allow this without considerable thought put into it. Besides, the sports festival is important for all students at UA. Well, it is the Olympics for heroes, Hilda said. Izuku nodded in agreement. It's a great way for young heroes in training to get the attention of pros and learn from the best. And those who do well enough can get scouted by top hero agencies as a sidekick. And from there, some go independent and get the chance to become real heroes. Penny beamed. This is exactly why, in spite of my personal feelings, I agree with the decision on a practical level. This is an important event, and more heroes than ever are going to have their eyes on the festival. Aizawa said, you get one chance a year and 3 chances in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss this event, so no slacking off. Your training is more important than ever. Yes, sir. It was now lunchtime and everyone was taking this time to discuss their chances at the sports festival. Aljiro-kun, I'm getting so nervous now. I need to stand out in the sports festival, Toru declared. I'm excited to see how far we've come in such a short time. Hilda said as she took out a large bento box. Who knows, maybe I'll unlock another of the piggybacked quirks that OFA is carrying. I'm ready to kick butt and take names. Kirby cheered. We're gonna wreck this, Bakugo. Katsuki chuckled. Ha, you got that right. I believe this will be a sensational experience. Penny said brightly. What do you think, Ben? Ben shrugged. Hey, let the chips fall where they may. Guys, what's going on with Ururaka? Mina asked nervously. Everyone turned to see the brunette girl had an intense look on her face that was eerily reminiscent of Katsuki, a pink aura surging all around her body. Everyone, I'm gonna do my best. Uraraka, your face. For the love of Horikoshi, Ururaka, you were like a completely different person back there, Hilda said as everyone made their way to the cafeteria. You're pretty pumped up about the sports festival. Any reason why? Izuku asked. Achako slumped. You're gonna think it's stupid. I mostly want to be a hero for the money. I know it sounds like I'm being greedy, but my family's been dirt poor for as long as I can remember. I know you guys have such admirable reasons for wanting to be heroes. I mean, if you want your family to live a comfortable life, why not seek a good-paying job? Hilda pointed out. What does her family even do? Kirby asked. They run a construction company, but we haven't gotten any work lately. When I was little I said I wanted to use my quirk to help them at work. Since I can float all the materials needed, Mom and Dad could sell off all their heavy lifting equipment. With your quirk that would be perfectly reasonable to do. Izuku noted. I know, right. But Dad said he'd be happier if I was able to achieve my own dream. So I decided, I'll become a pro hero, sign on with a major agency, and make enough money that my parents can live an easy life. Tenya teared up, moved by Ochako's reasoning. That is truly admirable, Ururaka. I can't think of anyone more deserving of being a hero than you if you think of the people you love before yourself. You're a good kid, Machai, Hilda said, playfully slapping Ochako on the back. I knew there was a reason I liked you. Suddenly, the group heard the familiar boisterous laughter of All Might and turned to see the symbol of peace standing in the hall. Young Midoriya and friends are here. He then demurely held out some bento boxes in a bag. Would you and young Yasakani like to come over and eat lunch with me and Tsune? Boy, would we. Hilda grinned. Izuku and Hilda made it into the teacher's lounge, where Tsunade was waiting for them. Kashinori deflated back to his normal self as the four sat down to eat and talk together. So, the sports festival is coming up, kids, Tsunade said. More than likely there's going to be some major competition, more so than normal. Since your class survived a major villain attack, many students might try and use this to their advantage. Some might try and force someone from the hero course out through their performance, especially Class 1A. If a student from General Ed proves themselves in the sports festival, then they can be promoted to the hero course. To facilitate this, the hero course student who performed the most poorly is bumped down to General Ed in their place. Toshinori explained. Someone planning on this might try to discredit the toughest students in the hero course in order to get an advantage. That said, I don't think either of you have anything to worry about. You got that right, Hilda said, flexing her blubbery biceps proudly. Izuku's eyes emanated a passionate light, nodding his head firmly in determination. Toshinori and Tsunade smiled, seeing their students pumped up and ready for the challenges ahead. After school had ended for the day, the students of Wana had been ready to leave when Ochako opened the door just to see a crowd right outside their door. What the heck? They're crowding the exit. What are they here for? Minoru complained. They're scoping out the competition. Small fry, Katsuki sneered as he walked towards the crowd. We're the class that made it out of that villain attack. They're checking us out before the sports festival. So this is Class 1A. A bored voice spoke up as everyone saw a young man with gravity-defying indigo hair and dark circles under his eyes step forward. I heard you guys were impressive, but you just sound like an ass. Yeah, sorry about Kachin, Kirby said, hugging the explosive blonde from behind, a friendly and innocent smile on her face. He can be a bit abrasive at times, but he's a good guy, I promise. It's not fair to judge the whole class based on the personality of one person, Penny said in an equally friendly way. The young man shrugged. Fair enough. Glad to see I was wrong in my thoughts that you guys were a bunch of egomaniacs. Trust us, if we were, we'd be rubbing it in the whole school's face, Hilda said. Man, you guys are just so laid back. Huh. You know, I wanted to be in the hero course, but like many of us here, I got forced to choose a different track, such as life. Katsuki laughed. That just proves you were stupid enough not to notice the kill switches on the robots, jackass. I mean, look at Minta and Hagakure. Ben pointed out. Do you think they have the strength to smash robots? No, they got by with their wits and ingenuity. Everyone is here because they know what it takes to be a real hero, Izuku said firmly in defense of his classmate. The young man smirked. Guess I misjudged you. Name's Hitoshi Shinso. Guess I should take your words to heart if I want to prove myself worthy of getting in. And we look forward to seeing you prove yourself as well. Penny smiled. Unfortunately, the levity was broken when an unpleasant voice made itself known. So this is the famous Class 1A. Everyone looked to see a young man with slick blonde hair and wearing the most arrogant expression anybody had ever seen someone have on their face. And who the hell are you? Katsuki sneered. The blonde clicked his tongue. HMPH, of course you wouldn't know who I am. So full of yourselves that you don't even deign us a glance, despite the fact that we are literally next door. You didn't answer his question. That's just rude. Kirby pouted. Monomanito, from the esteemed Class 1B, the blonde smirked. All right then, nice to meet you, Hilda said nonchalantly. Can you get out of the way? We're trying to go home now. What, do you really think that we'll just step aside and bow down to you as if we are nothing more than common peasants? Monoma snorted incredulously. You must really be full of yourself, just because you all beat some villains. You think that you're already big-name heroes whom everyone worships the ground you walk on. I'm very certain that 1B will do a much better job, and we won't be prancing around as if we own the entire world. You're making it sound like they asked to get attacked. Hitoshi dryly noted. Even I know that what happened was serious. Monoma either didn't hear or he just ignored him. Also, the sports festival is coming up. We at 1B are going to show the entire country that we are the superior class. So what that you all fought villains? No one is going to remember your silly little escapades when you are all taken down by the might of. Monoma never got to say any more, as Ben suddenly zoomed in front of everyone and grabbed the blonde by the throat. The gathered students gasped. Some shrieked, as Ben lifted the pompous blonde off the ground, grip deathly tight around the bastard's neck. Do you really think that? Do you honestly believe that 1B... No, you would have done a much better job taking down the villains? Think about it, Monoma Nito. I'm pretty sure that you're aware that regardless of the low-tier thugs, there was a man with an instant death touch, a villain who could teleport people anywhere, and a towering genetically engineered monster with multiple quirks. He's right, you know, Izuku said with gentle firmness as he placed a hand on Ben's shoulder to dissuade him from hurting Monoma. We were lucky the villains gathered were low-tier, but those 3 villains, they were something else. The leader almost killed my best friend and I had to resort to maiming him to defend her. The warp villain could have easily warped us to places that played on our weaknesses if they planned just a little bit better. And that monster, it was even giving our teachers a hard time before All Might showed up. Some of our classmates were legit traumatized that day, enough that they needed to take counseling from Hound Dog. Ben snarled. So tell me, Monoma Nito, do you truly believe that you could have done a better job when even seasoned pros struggle? Penny stepped forward worriedly to try and help Izuku dissuade Ben, but Ijiru worriedly held a hand out to stop her. Trust me, Monoma, if our situations were reversed and the villains had more proper planning, I'm pretty sure your parents would be called in to identify your corpse. Or rather, what is left of your corpse, because I firmly believe that you would have been pulpified and disintegrated, Ben said, gauging Monoma's fear. You are in the hero course regardless of class name, yet your attitude leaves plenty to be desired. You know Aizawa-sensei actually expelled those who didn't show they had what it took to be proper heroes, even if he helped give them a chance afterward when he saw they learned their lesson. Hilda pointed out. And if he were your teacher... you wouldn't have survived the first day. You would have been kicked to the curb faster than you can go on about your little spiel on superiority. Ben sneered before dropping Monoma on his ass. Continue this arrogant behavior and you can kiss whatever future you thought you'd have here goodbye. The arrogant blonde coughed and spluttered, grabbing at his throat, which now had a red handmark from how tightly Ben had held him. Why you stupid piece of shit. A fist plowed itself into Monoma's face, sending him to the floor with one of his teeth knocked out and a bloody nose on top of that. Everyone turned to see the assailant was a short girl with stark white skin and pink tattoos on her neck, light green hair, and pink and yellow eyes. There were also some cybernetic lines around her eyes as well. You really felt like it was a bright idea to harass the ones who actually dealt with villains out for their blood. I knew you were a pompous, self-centered ass, but this takes the cake. I am speaking for all of us. Monoma snapped back. Our class could just as easily handled. No, you couldn't have. Everyone turned to see another girl with neck-length silver hair styled into a bob cut with matching feline ears on top of her head. She had amber eyes, 3 white striped tattoos on her face, and elongated canines. If what we were told from our teachers was true, then you would have easily been bodied by those blokes. Sure, we could have handled the thugs, but then how would we deal with the ringleaders? The cat-eared girl asked in an Irish accent. Rebecca, Nia. The 2 girls turned to Izuku, their eyes widening in recognition as they forgot about Monoma, leaving him on the floor as they walked over to him. Hi, Izu. What's up, Chumi? Rebecca grinned as she playfully punched Izuku's middle, which barely fazed him. You've gotten taller since I last saw you, Nia noted with a smirk. Still got that baby face everyone's pinching though. Izuku blushed. I'm surprised to see you here at UA. Hey, we're not the only ones. There's one other here who wishes to see you too. Rebecca grinned as Izuku and Hilda's eyes widened when they saw who was also there. She was a beautiful girl who had the appearance of a red humanoid with fish features. Her skin was scaly and of different shades of red and white, and she had a fish fin on her head as hair. She had a serene face with thin red lips and glimmering yellow eyes. Mifa. The girl smiled warmly. Izuku... You've grown since I last saw you. And yet, you have not changed. MIPHA. Hilda cheered. It's been forever. How have you been? Mifa blushed when Hilda pulled into a big, doughy hug. She then smiled and giggled as she was set down. And Hilda, you've... Well, you've certainly grown indeed. Hilda patted her belly. Big, fat, and proud, baby. Monoma had gotten to his feet and was about to admonish his classmates for being buddy-buddy with the enemy, but then a giant fist slammed onto his head and sent him face first into the floor hard enough to make a crater. We're sorry about this idiot. The owner of the fist, a girl with orange hair and a side ponytail and teal eyes, apologized. He loves hearing his own lips flap. He seriously needs to know that we're all equal here. And who are you? Katsuki asked. Itsuka Kendo, class rep of Class 1B. I'll be sure to give Monoma a thorough scolding later. I'll take him to Vlad King, Itsuka, said a short chubby girl with long side bangs, pink eyes, and pale skin. She had multiple silver earrings in both ears, with a star-shaped one in her left ear, and studs. Thanks, Nimona, Itsuka said, handing Monoma to the girl as she turned into a pink feathered ostrich and carried the blonde off on her back. With that, the crowd finally dispersed, allowing everyone to finally leave. So, wanna grab a bite to eat and catch up on old times? Rebecca grinned with a wink. Izuku smiled. Sure, I'd like that. The students of Class 1 spent the next 2 weeks honing their physical abilities and quirks, the teachers allowing them use of the simulation domes for this purpose. With how much training they did, the sports festival arrived in no time, and already various booths were out with all kinds of foods and merch. Mount Lady tried to use her sexiness to get free takoyaki, only to get walloped in the back of the head by Metal Bat. Dumbass, what kind of self-respecting pro-hero uses exploration on a regular vendor? The delinquent-esque hero barked. You're setting a bad example for my little sister and all others like her. I'm just trying to get a leg up on Midnight. I need the practice, she complained. Just pay attention to the actual competition, Death Arms said. All eyes are gonna be on Class 1 after the attack on the USJ. This is their chance to prove their success wasn't just a fluke. Kamui Woods nodded in agreement. We should keep an eye out for potential heroes to let intern with us so they can learn to become real heroes. Honestly, I'm kinda nervous, Izuku said worriedly. To keep things as fair as possible, all participants had to wear their gym uniforms, and every student was allowed whatever support items they needed to make full use of their quirk. Chin up, Izu, Hilda giggled, snacking on some potato chips. We'll do great, especially with our kick-ass powers. I'm sure we'll all stand out no matter who wins, Ben noted. I have a feeling this'll be fun. Indeed, I'm so excited. Penny beamed. Izuku couldn't help but admire the optimism of his friends before suddenly feeling an insanely powerful aura with his haki. He had just enough time to cross his arms and block a sudden powerful force of energy that sent him skidding back slightly. Izuku, Midoriya. The rest of his class cried in alarm but relaxed slightly when they saw he was unharmed. I can see spending all this time playing hero hasn't softened you up, my boy. As the dust settled, they saw a tall man with black hair and a beard with graying sideburns clad in a black double-breasted suit with a white shirt and a red tie. He was also wearing a regal white coat like a cape. Holy crap, it's Garp the Fist, Ijiru exclaimed with starstruck awe. So manly, one of the certified strongest men around and one of the few people who can match All Might's strength. Momo added, absolutely flabbergasted. He was also the former number 3 pro hero many years ago before going into semi-retirement. Hi, Grandpa. Izuku smiled as he lowered his arms. He's your grandpa. Minoru, Shiro, and Denki all cried in shock. Yeah, on my mother's side, Izuku explained. What brings you here, Grandpa? What? Can a grandfather wish his grandson good luck in what is essentially the Olympics for superheroes? Garp laughed. Your whole family is watching, you know. Be sure to make us all proud. Sure thing, Grandpa. Izuku beamed proudly. Tell Mom and Uncle Shanks I love him. Sure thing, a cheeky brat. With that, Garp took his leave as everyone was still shocked that Izuku was related to such a legend. Dude, why didn't you ever tell us your grandpa was Garp the Fist? Shiro demanded. You never asked. The sports festival was just about to begin and Izuku was leading his class to the stadium. However, before they could make their big entrance, he was stopped by Shoto. Need something, Todoroki, Midoriya, Shoto said, causing quite a few of the students to look at him and Izuku. I think it's safe to say, looking at this objectively, that you're the strongest one in this whole class. Still, All Might has his eyes on both you and Yasakani, and the fact that you're related to Garp the Fist and red-haired Shanks only exemplifies your importance. Despite this, I fully intend to beat you. Izuku suddenly did something that surprised quite a few of his classmates. He smiled, a smile that dared the entire world to come at him with everything it had. I'd like to see you try, but don't forget about everybody else. We're all here to prove ourselves to the world. Every student, from our class to all the other classes like the general ed course students, is aiming for the top with all their might. If you're not careful, you could trip, the verdant-haired lad said. Plus, objectively speaking, we're not the only strong ones here. Everybody else has the same chance. Heck yeah, tell him, Izu. Hilda cheered from the side. He's got a point. We're all planning on giving it our all. Ben pointed out. And you, Todoroki, better come at us with everything you have. Otherwise you won't make it past the first event. That's right. If you don't give it everything you have. Izuku's eyes then narrowed dangerously. Then you might as well have never come to UA. The words seemed to hit Shoto hard as he looked at his left hand before clenching it tightly into a fist, grimacing angrily. No, I don't need it. I don't need to use his quirk to win. Thanks for getting us these seats, Inko said as she sat down along with Mitsuki, her husband Masaru, and Shanks. Also with them were Tatsumaki and her sister Fubuki aka Hell Blizzard, who were actually Inko's nieces and Izuku's cousins due to being the daughters of Inko's older brother, Dragon. No problem, Auntie Inko, Tatsumaki said. Besides, I needed to break away from the rest of my team for a while. And how's my little angel doing? Garp asked as he came over and sat down nearby. Papa, Inko smiled seeing her father. It's doing all right. I'm just a little nervous about Izuku, is all. What mother isn't? Shanks chuckled. But I have a feeling he'll more than chew this tournament up and spit it out. Hey, don't write off the rest of his class, Fubuki pointed out. They're prepared to show what they can do regardless of how powerful their quirks are. Damn right, Mitsuki said. I just hope my own brat doesn't make an ass of himself on live TV. Well, Katsuki has been getting better, Masaru pointed out. Hey, present mic announced from the commentator's booth, causing the crowds to cheer loudly. Pay attention, audience, swarm, mass media. This year's high school rodeo of adolescents that you all love, the UA Sports Festival, is about to begin. Everyone, are you ready? Why did I agree to do this? Aizawa grumbled, sitting right next to present Mike. Our students are coming out to the big stage. So everybody be sure to show them your support. Present Mike continued as Aizawa just groaned. Class 1 were the first ones out of the gate, led by Izuku. And here they are. And of course, you miscreants all came to see them specifically, didn't you? The miraculous new stars who overcame a mass villain attack with hearts and wills of steel. Hero Course, Class 1A. Man, there's a lot of people, Kirby noted, looking at the gathered crowds. It does feel a bit daunting, Tenya admitted. Hopefully we can still give it our all before this large crowd. Next up, they may not have gotten a chance to fight villains yet, but these kids are nothing to scoff at. Some might even be just as powerful as some of Class 1A's all-stars, maybe even more so. Give it up for Hero Course Class 1B. Class 1B stepped in next, led by Itsuka. Izuku and Hilda smiled, waving over to Mifa, Nia, and Rebecca, who waved back once they noticed them. Next, we have the General Ed courses of Class 1 degrees Celsius, 1D, and 1E. They may not be in the hero course, but there just might be a dark horse among the ranks. Itoshi was with Class 1 degrees Celsius and had a look of steely determination on his face. After that are the support courses of Class 1 Fahrenheit, Class 1G, and Class 1H. They're the tech wizards who have big ambitions to make the next great inventions. Let's see what crazy toys they have in store. In Class 1H were two girls. One had pink dreadlocks and amber eyes with crosshairs in them, while another was a girl about as fat as Hilda with reddish-brown hair and a ponytail and wearing glasses. And finally, the business courses of Class 1I, Class 1J, and Class 1 Kelvin. They have the savvy skills to make sure the greaseworks of Hero Society run smoothly. Give them a big hand. With all the courses introduced, Midnight sauntered up onto the podium as the umpire. And now it's time for the player's pledge. The 18-plus heroine announced, raising her whip up. Someone should say something about what Midnight Sensei is wearing. Aijuru pointed out. Denki nodded. That outfit should definitely come with a warning. You got that right, Minoru said, giving a thumbs up. Not that I'm complaining, obviously. Of course you wouldn't. Kayuka scoffed, rolling her eyes. Damn it, Mom. Ben sighed as Penny patted him on the back comfortingly. She's your mom, Toru Whisper yelled in surprise. That does explain why she dotes on Torkiroshi especially frequently during modern arts class, Rikadu noted. Silence, everyone, Midnight called out. And for the student pledge, we have Izuku Midoriya. I guess it makes sense. He did place first in the entrance exam, Shiro noted. Izuku looked a little nervous but took a deep breath before walking up to the podium and picking up the mic. I just have one thing I'd like to say to every student here, the verdant-haired lad said humbly. Being a hero is no easy task. It's about more than just flashy quirks, cool costumes, strong personalities, or big names. It's about being there for the people, inspiring them, and giving them courage. Some of you are here hoping to move up to the hero course, and that's fine, so long as you understand what being a hero truly means. We all came here to impress the pro heroes, and to do that, we need to push ourselves and strive for the very top. Garp grinned proudly as Shanks just gave a smirk and shook his head. Inko teared up slightly in pride while Tatsumaki and Fubuki both nodded their heads. To everyone participating in this sports festival, you are all my rivals, ready to give everything you have to win, and that is more than enough to earn my respect and the worth of being called rivals. I want everyone to remember what these words stand for. Go beyond, plus ultra. Izuku's speech was met with pure silence even as he handed the microphone back to Midnight. However, the second he reached the steps, the whole crowd of students was cheering in excitement, the rest of the stadium erupting in similar cheers not too long after. You tell him, my boy. Garp laughed heartily. Anyone can be worthy of being a top hero as long as they have the will to reach it. That kid ... you'd be proud of him, Hisashi. Shanks chuckled softly to himself, a fond nostalgic smile on his face. My baby boy, Inko said, doing her hardest not to cry as Mitsuki and Tatsumaki comforted her. Tenya and Ijiru were moved to tears by Izuku's speech. Ben smiled proudly and clapped his hands in approval, Penny joining in. Ha, you always have such a way with words, Izu. Hilda smiled. Damn shitty nerd. Katsuki scoffed. Don't go counting me out. You want a rival, I'm gonna give you one. Don't cut me out, honeycakes. Kirby giggled. Hitoshi also smiled. I was expecting some sort of condescending remark, but this guy's got me thinking about why I really want to be a hero. A wonderful speech indeed, Midnight said, nodding in approval. Now, let's get on to the main event. A projection appeared behind her with a slot spinning randomly. Soon, the slot slowed down and finally halted for all to see what it landed on. Obstacle course race, Midnight announced, cracking her whip. This is a full participation race. The course is treacherous and stretches 4 kilometers around the outside of the stadium. The only rule in this race is that you are forbidden from leaving the racetrack. Beyond that, do whatever you feel you have to reach the end. I'd like to add that you have to go around the 4 kilometers course, Aizawa piped in. That means no going out and then back into the finish. Even if they are at the same location, you must run the full course in order to win. Ah, good catch, Sho. Present Mike nodded. Now then, everyone, take your place. Midnight smirked, pointing to the red tunnel exit. The red starting gate had lights turned on, and the students all standing at the ready. In the stands, Toshinori, Tsunade, and many of the S-rankers were in the VIP hero seats, their attention focused on the young hero course students. Young Midoriya, young Yasakani... This is your moment, kids. Tell the world that you are both here. The lights counted down until they all went out. Begin. In a small private room, Tamura was on his computer, watching the sports festival. The Dark Knights and Kirigiri were standing by. Pay close attention, boy, Merciless said firmly. If you wish to counteract the enemy, you must learn their strengths. Yeah, Tamura muttered. His sensei had taken away since it was still technically in his body and given him a new quirk known as, which was a transformation mutant type that gave him metal hands that could regenerate and turn into liquid metal, as their purpose was to shapeshift into any blade or gun, the blades being exclusive to the left silver hand and the guns being exclusive to the right black hand. I'm gonna need some popcorn for this one. That man who laughs cackled with excitement at how the sports festival would play out. Tamura just kept his focus on the screen. Izuku Midoriya... If we're gonna be arch enemies, I have to know just what makes you tick. Most of the students surged forward as soon as they heard the starting signal. A few, though, more from the business course classes, chose to step to the side, not even bothering to participate in the race. Okay, here's the play-by-play. Are you ready to do the commentary, Sho? Present Mike asked Aizawa. How did you rope me into this? Aizawa wondered. Come on. Do it for me, best buddy. Aizawa sighed but relented. Fair enough. Right now I couldn't give any sort of rational answer off the top of my head. Even students from general ed can find new uses for their quirks that they didn't think of during the entrance exam. It was designed to be as impartial as possible, but sometimes a promising student slips through the cracks because they don't fully understand how the exam works. It'll be interesting to see if any of them can prove they have more potential than a student from the hero course. All right, perfect insight. Present Mike crowed. Now what's the first exciting thing we should see? This part right now. True to Aizawa's words, the most interesting part was the fact that the entry gate was getting crowded due to the large number of students trying to push through. Stop shoving, damn it. Hey, you're in my way. Get your ass out of my face. Get your face out of my ass. As you can see, the doorway is often cited as the first unofficial obstacle, Aizawa dryly commented. Despite this surprise, many students in Class 1A and even Class 1B were finding their way through. Minoru used his hairballs to bounce off the walls. Hilda showed her nimble grace despite her bulk by jumping over the crowd and running across one of the walls. Penny activated her jet boots and was surprised to see Rebecca following her, jets protruding from her back. Amazing. How are you able to do that? Penny asked in intrigue. It's my quirk, Rebecca grinned. It turns my body into a high-tech foundation of weapons and gadgets. I'm basically a human robot. Penny beamed. Well, let's see if you can keep up. You're on, Freckles. Suddenly, a torrent of ice blasted through the tunnel and out came Shoto. However, many of the others managed to break through his trap. Katsuki blasted through with his explosions. Momo propelled herself with an extending pull from her wrist. Ijiru had Shaoji throw him like a fastball, Fumikage had Dark Shadow plow through, and Yuuga flew across with his laser. Kirby took a big gulp of a chunk of ice she pulled and transformed, donning winter clothes while her skin and hair became an icy blue. She also wore a crown of ice crystals on her head as she skated on the ice gracefully. Oh yeah, Ice Kirby, baby. Ha ha ha. Nimona laughed, turning into a pink-furred polar bear to run across the ice with her quirk. She was followed closely by Mipha, who glided across a torrent of water she seemed to be producing from around her. Hilda used great leaps to stomp on the ice, cracking it to make it easier to navigate, using her blubber to cushion the impact. Gum gum rocket, Izuku cried, stretching his arms to catapult himself across at high speeds with, "You Class 1 bastards always have to make yourselves the centers of attention." Monoma scowled as he hung back, asking a few students about their quirks. "Gotta say, they live up to the hype," Hitoshi noted as he was carried by a few students who seemed to be out of it. Minoru continued to use his hairballs as trampolines, bouncing along the ice and even showing off by doing tricks in midair. Soon, he caught sight of Shoto and grinned evilly. "Uh-huh, you've left yourself wide open, Todoroki. Now take my secret technique. Grape Rue." Unfortunately, the dwarfish boy was punched by a giant metal fist, sending him rolling along the ground like a pinball. "Mind-a-kun," Izuku cried out in terror. "Targets found. Lots. Oh boy, looks like we hit the first obstacle." Ben realized. Everyone looked up to see several of the zero-pointers from the entrance exam glaring down at them. "Holy shit," Denki called out. "I think those are the zero-pointers." "You don't say," Rebecca sarcastically snapped out. "Looks like our contestants have met their first obstacle. May I introduce to you the first barrier? Robo Inferno," Present Mike announced. "Seriously, the hero course had to fight these?" A general ed student exclaimed. "This is what they meant by obstacles. There's way too many for any one of us to slip through. I must say, I wasn't expecting this," Mipha noted in surprise. "I took the recommendation exam, so I didn't exactly see these." "Well, now we can smash him." Nia grinned as she ran on all fours, like a cat. Izuku just grinned, already having smashed the zero-pointer in his own entrance exam. But this time, with a much more open space, he decided to try something different. Repel. With the power of the Izuku sent all the robots flying back with magnetic repulsion force, sending them crashing into each other and even making a makeshift platform to jump around on. Holy cow. Izuku Midoriya of Class 1 had just sent a bunch of the zero-pointers down with a single move. Present Mike exclaimed. "My guess is he used repulsion force via magnetic manipulation," Aizawa noted. "After all, his power isn't like a conventional quirk. Save some for the rest of us, Deku." Katsuki snapped as he slammed a zero-pointer with a massive explosion. "TCH, can't let him show me up." Shoto growled to himself as frost began to emit from his right hand and leg, "though I wish they prepared something tougher since my shitty old man is watching." Shoto swiped his right arm up to launch another icy blast, freezing several of the other zero-pointers who were trying to get back up from Izuku's attack. After doing so, he ran forward to chase after Izuku, who had started running as soon as he landed. He stopped them between the legs. "We can get through now." "I wouldn't if I were you," Shoto warned with an offhanded tone as the frozen robots began to shake. "I froze them while they were at precarious positions, so they'll crash down." The frozen robots indeed fell down, creating various shockwaves as they hit the ground. "Oi, what the hell is that shite?" Nia barked as she pounced high into the air, scaling one of the frozen robots and jumping across with the grace of a cat. "At least I got some heavy ammo," said the big chubby girl from the support course, who held her hands out as parts of the zero-pointers began pulling off and then converting into various different guns, including a giant shotgun, a rocket launcher, and a laser rifle. And it seems Fio Jeremy of Support Course Class 1H is showing her quirk in action. Present Mike examined. "This big chubby cutie pie can take anything machine-based and put them together to create all kinds of crazy weapons and gadgets. She also has a magic touch to repair broken machinery and technology." "Fio?" Izuku wondered as he turned to the chubby girl in question, noticing her blasting apart some of the remaining zero-pointers. "I didn't know she got into UA too." Inko and Mitsuki were both in the stands cheering on their sons as they raced to the head of the pack. Garp was laughing with pride at how Izuku was easily dominating the race while Shanks and Masaru watched with silent pride. "Man, our baby cousin never ceases to surprise us." "Huh." Tatsumaki chuckled as Fubuki nodded. "Yes, he's certainly improved since Rayleigh's sensei trained him." "That's my baby boy," Inko beamed. "Keep it going, Izuku." "Don't slow down now, Katsuki," Mitsuki called out. Aijuru had been trapped under one of the robots but was able to smash his way through using and break free. "Damn you, Todoroki. Anyone but me would have been killed if this fell on them." "I know. What a jerk," another voice said in agreement as Aijuru turned to see a boy whose whole body was covered in pure metal. This was Tetsu of Class 1B, whose quirk was, which was pretty self-explanatory. "Boy, I know he's your classmate, but you don't mind if I smash him if I get my hands on him, right?" "You gotta be kidding me. Our quirks are basically the same," Aijuru complained. "How am I supposed to stand out with someone like you around?" You two shouldn't bicker, Momo chided, driving through on an electric motorcycle she created with Ochako riding behind her, using her own quirk to lighten the motorcycle while Kirby sat in the sidecar, firing ice bullets from her hands at any robots in their path. Zero flew over the robots using his tape to pull himself over while Fumigage had Dark Shadow drag him across. Mifa swam up the robot alongside them, surrounded by a torrent of water, and Rebecca's palms emitted magnetic pulses as she clung to the robot and scaled up it rapidly like Spider-Man. Configuration hardening, Penny said as her body was surrounded in green crystalline rock-like material, which she used to bulldoze through a zero-pointer, Ben flying after her while gliding on a surfboard made of metal parts he magnetically put together. Man, those kids are really learning not to hesitate, Blast noted in the Hero VIP stands. Class 1 sure knows not to take any prisoners, and the students of Class 1B are quick to adapt. Indeed, I am proud of my class for managing to do everything they can to keep up, Vlad King said with a nod before frowning as he looked at Monoma. But I'm rather disappointed with Monoma. He honestly thinks he's clever by hanging back and observing the other students. He forgets this isn't about the competition. It's about standing out from the crowd. Even in the early matches, going hard and doing well, even if you don't make it to the next round, can get you noticed. Heard he caused a bit of a scuffle in school a few days or so ago, said Zombaman, who was smoking a cigarette. Not very heroic, antagonizing the kids who had to deal with actual villains when they weren't prepared for it. I know, I tried telling him off about it. Vlad King sighed, but I fear he may have taken the wrong lesson from it. He seems to believe that the whole incident was staged to make Wanna look better. Oi, was the first obstacle too easy? Then what about the second one? Present Mike announced. If you fall, you're out. If you don't want to fall, then you have to crawl. It's the fall. Pretty on the nose name. Huh, Hilda noted as she and Izuku stopped at the start of the second obstacle in question, which was a deep pit with numerous columns inside connected by tight ropes. When did they have time to build something like this? Ochako wondered. Well, lucky for some of us, we can either climb like snakes, Ben began as he jumped over the edge of the pit before suddenly flying on a gust of wind, or we can just fly across. Izuku giggled before using the to turn his arms into flaming teal-green phoenix wings, flying across the pit without issue. This is where I get to shine, Kiro, Tsuyu said as she made a great leap and effortlessly landed on one of the tight ropes, clinging to it with ease. Well, nobody lives forever. Hilda grinned as she took a few steps back before running forward and catapulting herself across with OFA powering her up. GERANIMO. Fio quickly took some of the spare robot parts she took from the zero-pointers and constructed them into a large board, which she jumped on before using it to skate across the wires connecting the platforms, showing surprising balance despite her wideness. The girl with pink dreadlocks chuckled as she fired off grapple lines attached to her waist, and flew across the pit using a set of hover souls. My super cute babies are sure to make a splash. I hope all those companies out there are watching. Why do you have to call them that, May? Fio asked in embarrassment. Mia nimbly crawled across the ropes like a cat with Nimona turning into a bird and simply flying across. Rebecca fired a grappling hook from the back of her hand and used it to pull herself across while Mifa made graceful leaps across the platforms with water geysers boosting her jumps. Momo created a pole to balance herself while crossing the wires and Itsuka swung down, enlarging her hands as she did so with her quirk, and grabbed the wire with her bare hands before swinging herself across like she was playing on the monkey bars. Tenya awkwardly balanced himself on the wires while using his engines to propel himself on them while Ochako lightened her clothes and weighed as much as possible before trying to crawl across, clinging onto the wire tightly with her hand and legs. I can't let Ben leave me behind. Penny smiled as she used her jet boots to fly across, also taking the time to help carry Kuji across, much to the shy rock-headed boy's appreciation. Kirby used her ice form's powers to skate across the wires connecting the platforms, Shoto having the same idea, gliding down the rail while balancing on his right foot. Man, there are so many kids showing off their versatile powers, it's stupid. In a good way, of course, a pro hero said. Many others had similar thoughts. They not only have strong quirks, but natural athletic ability. I heard the kid with the green hair was trained by the former number 2 pro hero, Dark Knight Rayleigh. Gotta say, those two girls may be well, big, but they make it work for them. I heard one of them was trained by All Might himself. The kid with half red hair is the son of Endeavor, isn't he? I think I saw that pink-haired girl eat a whole chunk of ice and now she has ice powers. That green-haired girl is a living robot arsenal. Are you sure she's a human and not a machine? And that guy with the glasses, he was manipulating magnetics but now he's flying on air. Just what the heck is his quirk? Izuku was in the lead with Hilda, Ben, Katsuki, Shoto, Penny, Kirby, Mifa, Rebecca, Nia, and Nimona all close behind. Nimona had currently taken the form of a rhinoceros and was galloping ahead past Nia. who yelped and quickly jumped onto her back while clinging for dear life. Suddenly, Izuku noticed a sign as they were getting closer to the end and his eyes widened in shock. Heads up, a minefield, and it looks like they've arrived at the final obstacle. Present Mike announced. Careful where you step, folks, for it's danger everywhere. Welcome to the minefield, straight out of the old Rambo movies. Originally, we were going to set it up for the players to be able to tell where the landmines are, but we thought it would be more fun if you couldn't tell. Test your luck and instincts. Fortunately, the landmines are non-lethal, but they can still pack a punch when you least expect it, Aizawa added. Ben simply smirked before he suddenly jumped into the air and then slammed his palms into the ground, releasing pressurized pulses of dark purple energy. Everyone was confused by what he was doing but soon got their answer when every single mine detonated at once, creating a massive explosion of purple smoke. And it looks like Benio Torkiroshi of Class 1 has just decimated the minefield. What's up with that? The drawbridge is down, people. Ben smirked before dashing forward, lightning emitting from his feet. Well, that's sporting of him. Nimona grinned as she ran ahead, still in rhino form with Nia clinging to her back. Boy, watch how fast you're going, Nimona. Haha, sorry, Nia. Penny and Miffa ended up being neck and neck with each other. Penny flying with her jet boots while Miffa swam across the water torrent she was somehow able to generate around herself. You're very talented, Penny. I can say the same for you, Miffa. Man, all these kids are just amazing. Show. Present Mike exclaimed. Just what the hell are you teaching em? This has nothing to do with me. Each of them is powered by their own drive. Everyone watched with bated breath at who would arrive at the finish line first. Soon, after what felt like several agonizing seconds, Izuku, Hilda, and Ben all crossed the finish line at the same time. It's a three-way tie between Izuku Midoriya, Hilda Yasakani, and Benio Torkiroshi. Present Mike cheered. And following close behind is a two-way tie between Katsuki Bakugo and Kirby Sakurai. Whoa, couples finished together. Kirby cheered as she hugged Katsuki, who rolled his eyes as he patted her on the back. Following in third is a tie between Penny Polandina and Miffa Hashimoto. The crowd went wild, and Ko nearly dehydrating herself from tears of joy as she and Mitsuki hugged each other. Yeah, show em, Izuku. Tatsumaki cheered along with Fubuki. That's my boy. Garp bellowed heartily as Shanks smiled proudly. Tamura watched as Izuku, Hilda, and Ben finished at the same time, scratching at his neck contemplatively as the Dark Knights also saw the finish. I honestly would have been disappointed if he couldn't clear the obstacle race, Tamura admitted. Anyone who can practically beat me on the first go yet lose to a bunch of worthless NPCs can't be worth my time. I honestly can't with that video game lingo of yours, Grim Knight dryly said. Oh, hush up and enjoy the show. Batman, who laughed, snarked back. It's a free ticket. Already the students of the business course were talking about how Izuku would be easy to market since they had no interest in truly participating in the event, nor had any desire to be actual pro heroes, instead performing market simulations on the other participants and ran vendors around the festival grounds. Katsuki scoffed as he dusted himself off. I may not have come in first, but at least Deku, Stay Puffed, and Elemento showed up Two-Face. True to Katsuki's word, Shoto was fuming as he had ended up placing 10th, having been upturned by Nimona, Rebecca, Nia, Tenya, and even Ochako. You guys were amazing. Nimona grinned as she came over. A three-way tie for first place. Never thought I'd see anything like it. When did you become such a Swiss Army knife, bucko? Nia asked, a hand on her hip. Izuku smiled bashfully as Hilda stood behind him and wrapped her thick but firm arms around him while playfully nuzzling her face in his curly green locks. Hey, don't ignore me, girls. Good job making it to first, Ben. Penny beamed as she pulled Ben into a surprise hug, making him freeze and blush as Miffa giggled playfully at them. Oh yeah, we managed to make it. May cheered, slapping Fio's belly, making her yelp and blush in embarrassment before seeing Izuku and waddling over. Izuku, the straw-hatted boy, noticed the bespectacled chubster and beamed as he came over to her. Fio was another old friend of his, and the last time he saw her, she was thin as a rake but had ballooned up quite nicely. Hilda pouting as she analyzed Fio's bulk and how it perfectly matched her own. Fio, I'm surprised to see you made it into UA. Fio giggled. Hey, I was more inclined to the support course, but I wanted to show my all in the race. Well, you've got quite the gut, girly, Hilda noted as she came over. How about after this festival is over, we see who can pack it and more? Fio giggled and blushed as Hilda bumped bellies with her. Haha. Sure, the obstacle race is officially settled. Midnight called out. Let's take a look at the final standings. All of Class 1A and Class 1B had passed along with Mei, Fio, and Hitoshi. To all those who didn't make the cut, don't worry, Midnight announced. We've prepared other opportunities for you to shine. But right now is where the real fun begins. This next round will provide you with the chance to really thrust yourself into the limelight. Mom, stop embarrassing me, Ben cried, burying his face in his hands. No wonder she's the 18-plus heroine. Niadoroy muttered. Now then, on to today's heart-pounding event. I already know what it is, but the suspense is so exciting. Now, what could it be? What should it be? And here it is. With the final statement, the slot landed on Cavalry Battle. Oh crap, I suck at those. Denki cursed. It's not an individual event, so I wonder how that'll work. See, you wondered. Looks like we're gonna find out. Kirby noted. Let me explain. Participants can form teams of 2 to 4 people as they wish. It's basically the same as a regular cavalry battle, but the one thing that's different is, based on the results of the last game, each person has been assigned a point value. A point-based system like the entrance exam. That's simple enough to understand, Rikidu mused. In other words, each team is worth a different amount of points depending on who's on the team. Penny hypothesized. Anyways, before you all get carried away, the points are assigned based on your placement in the obstacle course race in increments of 5. So the one in the last passing place will be 5 points, the one ahead will be 10 points, and so on. You can look up the board to see your own value, Midnight said before grinning. However, first place is different, as they will be worth a whopping 10 million points. Oh, that can't be good. Izuku gulped. That's right, Midnight smirked. It's the survival of the fittest, with a chance of those at the bottom to overthrow the top. Mom, why do you do this? Ben cried out in frustration as the 18-plus heroine looked away from her son, a sly, playful grin on her face. Great, now everyone is going to be gunning for us. Hilda groaned, noticing everyone's eyes on her, Izuku and Ben. This is the cost of being number 1, my boy. Toshinori grimly thought in the stands as he worried for Izuku's safety. But I have faith you will have those to stand by you in these troubling times. So this is the burden of being the best, Izuku noted, feeling everybody's eyes on him, Hilda and Ben. Each team will have a combined total of points based on the individual point value of its team members, Midnight explained. That total will be the sum of each member. Everyone will know how much each team is worth by the number on their headband. Swipe as many headbands as you can to raise your team's score. Remember, if you lose your own headband, that does not immediately disqualify you. You can still remain in the competition by swiping other teams' headbands to make up the loss in points. Makes perfect sense to me, Rebecca said, digging through her ear. All stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up, so the more you have, the harder it will be to manage them. Once time is up, the 8 teams with the highest score will move on to the final round. Midnight continued. You may use your quirks as much as you like, however, there are still rules. Make a team fall on purpose and I'll slap you with a red card, disqualifying you from the competition. You have 15 minutes to build your team. Oi, Deku, let me join your team, Katsuki said as he put a hand on Izuku's shoulder, much to his shock. Bakugo, why? The team that's the most mobile will have an advantage. And with you having the highest point value, we can get another advantage teaming up with you right from the start. Yup, I'm joining your team too. Kirby cheered as she leaned up beside Katsuki. After all, we're a package deal. Hey, Deku, any room for me? Ochako asked as she came over. The support from the 3 made Izuku burst into tears of joy. Well, guess I gotta split up from Izu. Hilda sighed before smacking her lips as she looked around. Now who can I get to join my team? How about me? Hilda spun around to see Miffa there, smiling warmly at her. Bakugo seems to have the right idea on what to do. Allow me to lend you my strength as well. Hey, if Miffa is on your team, let me join. Nimona said as she ran over. Besides, I'm the perfect girl to carry your big butt. Nimona then shapeshifted into a rhino to prove her point. Hilda and Miffa turning to each other and smiling. Ben, let us team up together, Penny said as she walked up to her friend. Thanks, Penny. Glad to see I've got you in my corner at least. Penny beamed. Of course, you've been there for me before, haven't you? Ben then turned to Hitoshi, who was looking around trying to find someone to join him, and an idea popped in his head. I think I can help that guy out. Tenya sighed as he saw Izuku already forming his team. He wanted to join too, but he figured this was for the best. He needed to strike off on his own. So instead, he picked Shoto's team, consisting of him, Momo, and Denki. Shame I couldn't team up with any of the 10 millions. May pouted. But hanging out with my best friend and a girl who is a living smorgasbord of cybernetic technological marvels is the next best thing. Theo giggled as she had opted to be the front horse, due to her bulk making her too big to be the rider. Yuuga had also been dragged along into her team after she noticed his belt and couldn't help but be curious about its function. Man, I wanted to team up with Bakugo, but at least we're still a team, Ashido, Ijiru noted as his pink-skinned best friend nodded, the two of them forming a team with Fumikage and Siro. Shoto test as he looked at Izuku, Hilda, and Ben's teams being formed. He didn't have much info on the members who were of Class 1B. And that lack of knowledge would make taking any of the 310 million points harder. Looks like most people are sticking to their own classes, Itsuka noted, having formed a team with Satsuna Takage, Ryuko Yanagi, and Kanoko Komori. Though a few of us are at least willing to branch out, it seems. Well, Miffa, Nia, and Rebecca know Midoriya and Yasakani personally, Setsuna pointed out. And Nimona is a free spirit. She joins up with anybody she's interested in. That girl, Hatsume, is a support tech fanatic. Jeremy is there to reel her in, but it is most befuddling as to why they brought in Aoyama of 1A. Ryuko said. Well, Aoyama does need that belt to handle his quirk. Maybe Hatsume and Jeremy were interested in it. Itsuka guessed. Monoma scowled in annoyance seeing many of his own proud classmates demeaning themselves to working with the glory hounds of Class 1A. Everyone's foaming at the mouth for what Class 1A will do. Why are they stars? The only difference between us and them is that they fought a couple of villains. But we of Class 1B aren't second rate. We'll win this and take everything from those arrogant snobs' noses. You say that, but you just barely qualified for the second event. You were way behind, only ahead of Aoyama. Sen pointed out. Kaibara, whose side are you on? Monoma snapped before huffing. Nevertheless, we can come back from this. There's a reason I had most of us lag behind so that we could surprise Class 1 when they least expect it. Mount Lady went to the staff break room to see Death Arms and Kamui Woods talking with a couple of the S-rankers, mainly Metal Bat, Tank Top Master, Super Alloy Darkshine, and Drive Knight. The sports festival isn't really about how prepared the students are to be heroes, Death Arms noted. It's more about simulating the competition they face if they go pro. Tank Top Master nodded. This country's overrun with agencies. If you want to put food on the table, you need to be able to stand out from the other agencies. That's such a sad way of looking at our jobs, Mount Lady said. Says the woman who's never had a problem stealing the spotlight. Kamui Woods pointed out with a roll of his eyes. It's not like heroes never work together or combine agencies, Super Alloy Darkshine noted. The first round was all about the competitive side of the hero business. The second round is more about the cooperative side. Yeah, every point you score counts for your whole team. Which means finding a good combination of quirks and physical ability is vital. Metal Bat voiced in agreement. The question remains, which teams have the best synergy to rise to the top? Drive Knight wondered, and it looks like everyone has their teams now. Present Mike noted as the buzzer went off, signifying time was up. They've had their time to talk strategy, and now it's time to put things into action. Aizawa noted some of the teams formed. There's a lot of interesting teams out there. Now, then, let out those battle cries. It's time for UAS bloody battle. Present Mike cried out, light up the signal fire. As the clock ticked down, Izuku looked back to his teammates, confirming that they were ready. They each nodded in reply, determination filling their faces. Izuku's got a plan. I can see it in his eyes, Ben said, addressing his team. We hang back. No sense in being caught in the blast zone. Ha, you guys are gonna love what I got planned. Hilda smirked as she, Mifa, and Aojiro, who couldn't find a team of his own, rode on Nimona in her rhino form. If Izuku is gonna do what I think he might do, then we better break away. Alright, regarding Midoriya, Yasakani, and Torkuroshi's teams, whoever is closest to us will be our target, Shoto said. Just one of those 10 million point bands will get us in the top placement, and with your fire and ice, we're guaranteed to move on. Denki said. Shoto glared. That's not happening. I swore never to use my left side in battle. Are you sure using your ice is going to be enough, Todoroki? Momo asked worriedly. It will be enough, I swear it. Tenya sighed, wondering if it would have been wiser to pick a different team instead if Shoto was only going to go at this at half power. 3, 2, 1, begin. Present Mike screamed out. All at once, most of the teams started rushing at Team Midoriya. However, Teams Yasakani and Torkuroshi broke away and cleared some distance, much to the other team's confusion. However, they soon got an answer as to why they were breaking away as Izuku's hand became shrouded in smoky darkness via which he then slammed into the ground at full force, being the front horse while Katsuki acted as the rider. Black Abyss. A wave of darkness surrounded Team Midoriya. Team Todoroki, Team Jeremy, and Team Tokoyami managed to stop themselves just in time, but the other teams weren't so lucky. As soon as they touched the darkness, it created some kind of black hole vortex, but it didn't drag them down into its depths. Instead, the teams who were caught noticed something shocking. Hey, I can't use my quirk. Ho ho. It seems Team Midoriya has set up a perfect combination of offense and defense. Those caught in his darkness can't use their quirks now. Present Mike laughed. It'd probably be wise for them to escape the darkness if they want to regain some fighting chance. But perhaps this could teach them to adapt. After all, it's not unlike being exposed to my quirk, Aizawa added. Team Tetsu, consisting of him, Ibara Shizaki, Oase Yosutsu, and Juzo Honuki managed to break away from the darkness and decided to take their chances with one of the other teams. Heading toward Team Yasakani, Juzo stomped his foot down, using his quirk to make the ground in front of him like quicksand. It's basically a battle for the 10 million points. Tetsu shouted. Nothing personal, guys, but you're just a target now in this game. It's alright, Tetsu, it's only a game, after all. Mifa smiled reassuringly. But we won't simply allow ourselves to be beaten so easily. Miffa suddenly created a massive geyser of water that lifted Team Yasakani up and above the softening ground. This was part of her quirk, which not only gave her perfect hydrokinesis but also granted her a magical healing touch. Ibara tried to catch them with the vines that made up her hair, but Hilda released a smokescreen to cover their escape as they flew across the battlefield. So long as we keep our headband, we're guaranteed a spot in the finals. So we just need to stay ahead of the other teams, Aojiro said. Sorry if I'm not going to be much help on this. Don't worry about it, Mashiro, Hilda reassured. As Team Midoriya watched the last of the teams break away from the darkness, Izuku decided to play more fair and dispelled the field. It seemed the other teams had realized how risky it was to chase Team Midoriya head-on and went for each other instead. Sooner or later they'll start attacking each other for the chance to fight us, Katsuki noted. And in the process, they'll start grabbing each other's headbands to lower the competition. A predator always goes for the easiest meal, so we just have to make ourselves too much of a hassle. With Team Jeremy, Fio has used her quirk to upgrade Yuuga's belt, allowing it to absorb the energy that leaked out from his belly button and store it for future use so he didn't have to force the beams out and hurt his stomach. This upgrade is Tresbone, Madame Jeremy, Yuuga said as he fired small, more controlled laser blasts from his belt. Hehe, no problem. Come see me after the festival for any future upgrades. Fio giggled. Hey, I could have said that. May pouted. Rebecca chuckled at the banter. Everyone tried to take on Midoriya's team because they were one of the three holding the 10 million points. But there are more than just 4 slots for the finals, you know. Exactly. Why go for the top right now when we can fight for it when it really counts? Fio voiced an agreement. Flying Rhino style. Nimona laughed as Team Yasakani continued to soar through the air before landing on the group, seeing Team Shaoji approach them with Tsuyu and Minoru perched on Shaoji's back. Keep those hands near the shoulders, Minta. Tsuyu warned. Would you relax? I've already got my hair bowls primed with him. Toru laughed as she was carried by her team consisting of Kyoyuka, Rikadu, and Kuji. Sorry, Yasakani-chan, but I'll be taking those points. What's the plan, boss? Nimona asked Hilda as Teams Shaoji and Hagakure closed in on them. Hilda bit her lip, trying to figure out a plan of escape, only to feel a tingle in her arms. Looking down, she gasped when she saw strange black strands coming out of her wrists. Wait, did I seriously get another of OFA's piggyback quirks? Toshinori and Tsunade both noticed the same thing as Hilda and looked at each other. That's the quirk of Degoro Banjo Aka Lariat, the 5th user of OFA. Toshinori noted in surprise. No doubt about it. Lariat was one of the few OFA users who faced him and lived to tell the tale. Tsunade nodded. He was even able to give the Dark Knights a hard time back in the day. Miffa, Nimona, and Aojiro noticed Hilda's new power and were confused but didn't have time to dwell on it. After all, perhaps this could help them. Hilda, whatever you're doing, perhaps that is how we can escape. Miffa noted. Well, here goes nothing then. She launched the black whips to deflect Minoru's hairballs and Tsuyu's tongue, redirecting them to Team Tetsu, who quickly dodged to the side. What the hell? Since when can she do that? Perhaps it is a divine blessing from God sent to aid her in her time of need. Ibara guessed. Now ain't that a big surprise? Present Mike noted. The judges are passing this off as legal, so it looks like Team Yasakani has better coverage to protect themselves. Hilda kept blocking shots, but with the other teams closing in, they needed to get out of there. She and Miffa nodded to each other before the latter created another water geyser to send them flying to the other side of the arena. After them, Tetsu shouted as his team turned to give chase. Come on, Gyro. It's time for revenge, Toru said. Oh, wait, Hagakure, your headband. It's gone. Rikadu cried out as he took a peek back up to confirm her orders. What? When did that happen? Cried out Toru as she desperately tried to find where it had disappeared. Too easy, Monoma grinned as he twirled the stolen headband, profiting while others fight. Hitoshi was looking over at Monoma as Penny used her configuration of Shotos to turn her arms into a snowblower and a flamethrower respectively, covering Team Torkuroshi's tracks with ice and fire combined. Honestly, what's his deal anyway? Hitoshi asked Nia. His plan was to have our class throw the first round, only coming up toward the end. Everyone loves an underdog, right? Maybe in other schools, but this is UA High. We're supposed to be plus ultra, no matter what class we're a part of. That does sound kind of stupid. The only way it would be fine for someone to do that is if they're going underground, but he seems like he wants to be the kind of hero who stands in the spotlight. A few of our classmates went along with him, mostly due to peer pressure. Nia sighed. Niffa and I have been the ones telling our classmates that Class 1 is not infallible and that they could be beaten. Why does Monoma even want to be a hero, anyway? Ben scoffed. His antagonizing of our class after school a few weeks ago didn't exactly do him any favors. And you sure made him know that, Hitoshi dryly pointed out. Nia shook her head. Monoma has this glorious ideal of what heroism is all about. Honestly, from what I've seen of him, he carries too much envy to be a proper hero. I think I can tell what he's like, Hitoshi noted. People made fun of his quirk, just like they made fun of mine. Though unlike me, who wants to prove his merits to everyone, he seems to prove himself as superior with his power. What even is your quirk, Shinso? Penny asked. The indigo-haired boy smirked. That's a surprise for the final event. Looks like we're handling things pretty well, Izuku said. His team had managed to keep their 10 million point ban. The same could be said for Hilda and Ben's teams as well. Kirby had allowed Katsuki to release an explosion in her face, which she inhaled to transform into Bomb Kirby, which clad her in a white dress shirt, light blue overalls, and a blue cap with a white puffball at the tip. Haha, nobody can handle double the bomb power, Kirby cackled, only to gasp when she felt her headband being taken. Apparently those explosions have clogged your senses. Monoma smirked as he clutched Kirby's headband in his fist. Oh fucking A, it's you. Katsuki scowled. Honestly, Midoriya, your class is too narrow-minded. I don't see why you and your classmates went all out in the preliminaries. It just let us see all your moves beforehand. Actually, it's so that the pros watching know what kind of heroes are coming from the next generation, Izuku said, holding his hat against his head. Oh please, we threw the first round to get a feel of everything and upstage you brats one by one divide and conquer style, Monoma boasted. Or at least we would have had you not poisoned them with your cocky words. We're supposed to give our all in this damn tournament, asshole. Katsuki snapped. You think you can write us off as arrogant showboaters when all we're doing is proving ourselves to the world? Honestly, my class would have been better off if they followed my plan. Monoma scoffed. There's no point in running after a temporary frontrunner like a horse with a carrot waving in his face. It's stupid. You keep saying that ... but you're not doing a good job of looking after your own points, Izuku said, much to Monoma's confusion. What do you? Suddenly, crows made of soot dashed around, snatching Monoma's headbands as well as the ones he stole. The blonde copycat gaped in disbelief and anger at being tricked so easily as Kirby dropped a bomb behind while Team Midoriya made their escape. Eat shit, you copycat fuck, Katsuki taunted. Vlad King sighed in exasperation as he saw Monoma's actions against Team Midoriya. I can't believe he managed to pass the entrance exam. We should consider altering it for next year to filter out anyone who would look down on others or hold a long-time grudge for perceived insults. Recommended students do have to go through an interview, Zombaman noted. Perhaps we should make that mandatory for the normal entrance exam as well. That kid may not even recognize it, but he's acting way too much like a stereotypical villain than an actual hero, Captain Falcon said, shaking his head in disappointment. Shoto growled as his team was going after Team Torkiroshi. It had seemed so simple at the time. It didn't matter to him how few or how many points his teammates were worth. All he had to do was grab the headbands belonging to either Izuku, Hilda, or Ben, and all that was moot. Things seemed to be straightforward. And then Izuku made a literal black hole and Hilda sprouted tentacles from her arms. What's the plan here, Todoroki? Denki said. I can use my special move here and now and still hit them. But if we're not close enough, we'll never snatch any of the headbands before the other teams recover. Shoto scowled before letting out a sigh, knowing what he needed to do now. We're switching targets, Shoto said. One of the other teams is closer, so we'll aim for them. The plan itself is unchanged. Momo nodded as she created an insulating blanket while Denki charged his electricity to full. Indiscriminate shock. 1 million volts. Most of the other teams were hit immediately, since they were closing in while trying to attack Izuku, Hilda, and Ben's team. That's gotta hurt. Hilda winced as Aojiro's tail fluff frizzled from the static. So glad you insulated us all. Hitoshi sighed as Ben formed a barrier of electricity that absorbed what came toward his team. Damn, two-faced bastard, Katsuki snarled. Deku, let's crush him. Might as well, he's planning something, Izuku said in agreement as Shoto iced the field before Tenya suddenly powered up his engine. RECIPRO burst. Taking off like a rocket engine, Team Todoroki sailed ahead. Shoto then reached out to snag the headbands of Team Fio, only for Rebecca to turn her arm into a shotgun-like apparatus. Nice try, Peppermint Bark. Team Midoriya quickly leaped ahead, Izuku stretching his arm out with the while Katsuki launched himself off his team. Teams Yasakani and Torkiroshi also closed in with Ben's hand glowing with energy while Hilda lashed out a few whips. Without even thinking, Shoto instinctively put up a fire barrier from his left side, just as Hilda grabbed his headband with one of the whips. And time's up. Present Mike announced as the final buzzer rang off, Katsuki's big moment going flat as he fell on his face. Damn it, did we just lose? Denki asked. No, Momo said as she held up a grapple gun she had created, with one of Team Fio's headbands in the claw. I saw what had happened, so instead of going for defense I decided to make up the difference by finishing our original plan. I also managed to snag a headband from Hagakure and Kendo's teams while I was boosting us, Tenya said, showing 2 headbands of his own. Shoto didn't hear, he was completely out of it, staring at his left arm in a daze. My fire. They made me break my promise. Let's take a look at the final scores. Present Mike called out. In first, Team Midoriya. The bans we took from that copycat fuckface helped in that regard. Katsuki smirked triumphantly. In second, Team Yasakani. Hilda pulled Mifa, Nimona, and even Aojiro into a big chubby hug, turning to Izuku to give him a wink, which he smiled and returned with a thumbs up. In third, Team Todoroki. Thanks for the help. Hitoshi smirked as he walked off from the rest of the team. In fourth, Team Jeremy. Now that's how you climb the pack, Mei said as she and Fio high-fived. In fifth, Team Tokoyami. Fumikage nodded in approval as Ijiru, Mina, and Siro all cheered. I thank you all for your support. With my offensive options limited, I needed the extra aid. Hey, I'm just psyched we're moving on, Siro said. Now we get to show off our skills in the final tournament. And sixth, Team Todoroki. Denki was just babbling like a goofball, walking back and forth while giving double thumbs ups as Shoto had a furious glare on his face. At this rate, I'll be exactly the tool he wants me to be. In seventh, Team Tetsu. We just barely made it, Tetsu said with tears in his eyes. Thank you, Holy Father, for giving us this chance, Ibara prayed. And in eighth, Team Monoma. Monoma scowled in annoyance at having been outsmarted by Izuku, silently plotting how he'd upstage the arrogant Class 1 bastards as Senkaibara, Kosai Tsuburaba, and Kiruwaro Shihai gave him deadpan looks. Wish I could have played Midoriya online during a gaming session, Tamura said. I could have used some tips for party building and team management. But that new ability his girlfriend showed off. Grim Knight rubbed his chin. Could it really be Lariat's quirk? I do recall many times he had disarmed you and me of our treasured weapons, brother, Merciless said. So our theories in him being a user of OFA were true after all. When he fought our brother, he tried to steal back OFA. Drown noted. That's how we learned that it is immune to his power, so long as the user of OFA has a higher will. Enji Todoroki, Aka the Flame Hero, Endeavor watched from the stadium. It was only for a moment, but Izuku, Ben, and Hilda's combined efforts had managed to push his son into using his flames. You are acting foolish, Shoto ... but it seems I only have myself to blame for that. I pushed too hard, too fast, to make up for my mistakes raising Toya. Hey, Enji, came the jovial voice of Garp as he came in. I almost didn't recognize you looking all dim and glum. Oh wait, that's your usual expression, isn't it? Garp-sensei, Endeavor said as he turned to the old hero. I take it you saw what happened. That boy of yours has much potential in him, but he's squandering it. Garp scoffed. Honestly, you could have learned to raise him a bit better than that. I know what I did, Garp, Endeavor hissed. I can't change the past now. It was thanks to Garp that he had chosen to come forward after the incident that caused Shoto's facial scarring, citing the reason being his own abusive behavior towards his children in light of his eldest son's apparent death when he couldn't handle his own quirk, and that his own wife Rei had simply snapped under pressure and needed psychiatric help to recover. Garp shook his head. Don't forget that the only reason you haven't lost your title is because I stood up for you when everyone else was against you. Even Toshinori, the very man you sacrificed so much in your efforts to upstage him, stood by your side. Still, your son is going to end up just like you used to be if this keeps up. What that boy needs is a reality check from someone other than me. And I feel like those kids All Might has his eye on are the key. That super speed move was so cool, Ada, Ochako said. I can't believe you were holding out on us. Tenya looked embarrassed. I needed to find some way to prove I could hold my own without Midoriya. Say, does anybody know where he is? Penny asked, and Ben and Hilda for that matter. The group looked around and realized that the three were nowhere to be found. I got a bad feeling about this, Kirby muttered. You and me both, Haim, Katsuki said as he went off to find them, his girlfriend quickly trailing behind. So, did you want to talk or something? Izuku nervously asked as he, Hilda, and Ben were standing with Shoto in the halls outside the bathroom. Silence reigned between Izuku, Hilda, Ben, and Shoto, the tension slowly becoming suffocating. Izuku gave him exactly 10 more seconds before deciding to just walk away. Well, if you're not gonna talk, might as well be on our way, Ben said nonchalantly as he and Hilda prepared to follow Izuku. I was overpowered, so much that I broke my pledge. The three all paused and turned to look at Shoto, who was staring at his left hand as if it was cursed by a terrible demon. Your strength, whether or not the others felt it, I did, and I resorted to using something I swore I would never use in battle. That power. It feels similar to the same power All Might radiates. Are you talking to me or Izu? Hilda asked, a hand on her hip. Because if you're gonna say we're All Might's children or whatever, I'm just gonna shut it out right now. Both of you ... and Todoroki, your powers over the elements, they go beyond normal quirks. Shoto then narrowed his eyes. I have to ask ... did my father donate his sperm and you were the byproduct of it? No. Ben cringed. What are you even getting at? To be honest, Hilda and I caught All Might's attention during the sludge villain incident last year, Izuku admitted. He offered to train us both, but he's not exactly what you'd call the best teacher, so he called a few friends over to help. One of them was my Uncle Shanks, my father's younger brother. I see. Shoto frowned. And what about Torkiroshi? I've got a lot of dark secrets that would traumatize the crap out of you if I told them. Ben cryptically said. I will say this though ... You're right about my power being more than just a quirk. Todoroki, so what's this whole thing about? What's your beef with us? Hilda asked. My father is Endeavor, the number 2 pro hero. Perhaps you've heard of him. Shoto began. If you and Yasakani are connected to All Might, the number 1 pro hero, that gives me all the more incentive to beat you. Okay, just write me off, why don't ya? Prick, Ben grumbled. My old man has a strong desire to rise in the world. As a hero, he won a name for himself with crushing force. But because of that, the living legend, All Might, is a great eyesore for him. Shoto explained. But no matter what he did, he couldn't beat All Might in power, popularity, or anything else. So he decided to use a different plan to surpass him. And you're telling us this why? Izuku asked. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? Izuku was surprised. There haven't been any recorded quirk marriages since the first few generations of quirks started showing up in humans. Yeah, it was a real problem. So many people were forced into relationships in order to make stronger children. Sometimes they worked out in the end. And other times ... they got real messy. Hilda frowned. Are you saying you're part of a quirk marriage? Ben asked as Shoto nodded coldly. My father not only has a rich history but also more than enough money to throw at his problems. My mother's family was destitute and suffering, and he came in like a knight in shining armor to pay off their debts. All he asked for in return was their daughter's hand in marriage to give birth to a child that could surpass both him and All Might. It's not like he raped her or anything, right? Hilda pointed out, hoping she'd be proven right. No, as much as I hate that bastard for using me as a tool in his ambitions. He never forced himself on my mother, Shoto said, but his furious scowl was still there. But once he saw that I was exactly the kind of child he wanted, he started grooming me to replace All Might. Sheesh, talk about daddy issues. Ben muttered quietly to himself. In the last few memories of my mother that I have, I only remember pain and sadness on her face. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore. I remember her calling my left side unbearable, and she poured boiling water on my face. Izuku shook at that image as Shoto raised his hand to the scar on his face. The scar which his mother had caused. He couldn't imagine his own mother doing the same thing. Hilda silently gasped and covered her mouth while Ben remained stone-faced. I picked a fight with you because I wanted to show him what I can do without his damn fire. I'm going to show him I don't need his power, that I can win with just my mother's eyes, Shoto said. Izuku, Hilda, and Ben's eyes briefly darted to the side. All three of their haki were able to detect Katsuki and Kirby eavesdropping nearby. The explosive blonde actually had a stunned look on his face while Kirby looked ready to tear up. In short, I'm aiming to beat you for my own personal reasons. I won't use his quirk. Or rather, I'll completely reject him by winning first place without using it. Shoto's eyes were filled with coldness and hatred as he made this vow. He then turned and began to walk away. I don't care if you can't tell me how you are connected to All Might. No matter what you are to him, I will rise above you with only my right side. Sorry for wasting your time, but I just wanted to get that point across. I'll be in the finals and the winner of it by the end of this tournament. Not so fast, jackass, Ben said, and Shoto suddenly found his body frozen in place and forcefully turned around to face him, Hilda, and Izuku. Todoroki, your story is sad, but it won't make any of us roll over for you, Izuku said sternly. And your reason ... It's absolutely stupid. Shoto growled furiously as he broke free of Ben's psychic hold and got up in the green-haired boy's face. Are you mocking my pain? You already did that when you accepted your father's recommendation into UA. Izuku snapped back with a glare, making Shoto reel back in shock. If you really wanted to show up your dad, then you should have just taken the entrance exam like the rest of us, Hilda pointed out. Even Edo was able to make use of the exam to stand out when his recommendation didn't pan out. And let me tell you something, Todoroki. Endeavor may have been an overbearing dick to you and he may have mistreated you in a way no father ever should ... But did he pump you full of chemicals? Force you into grueling simulations where death was a very real risk? Make you kill people who probably had families waiting for them ... Or even kill the families of those people to tie up loose ends? Shoto stepped back at each pointed question Ben made while Izuku and Hilda started to get a better understanding of their bespectacled friend. Your father may have been a bastard. Hell, I won't deny you had a harsh childhood ... But there are some of us who got their hands stained with blood before they even learned what the rest of the world was like, Ben said coldly as he stormed off. I'm here because I aim to redeem myself of the blood I've spilled, the people I've killed. I may never be forgiven, but I won't be used as a stepping stone for someone who selfishly holds himself back out of a petty sense of spite. The others watched Ben leave furiously as Izuku put a hand on Shoto's shoulder. His eyes were much more understanding but still full of determination. Todoroki. Ben does have a point. Hilda and I are here because of everyone that has supported us. Our motivations may seem trivial compared to yours, but we still use them to move forward. Ben has his reasons for becoming a hero, and so does everyone else. Sure, most of us don't have such a sad background as yours, but none of us will let you win that easily. Don't get cocky in thinking you'll be in the finals automatically. Otherwise, you'll stumble over others, and they'll use you as a stepping stone. I plan to face every opponent I have to meet with everything I have. Well said, babe, Hilda said, leaning down to kiss Izuku on the cheek, making him smile with a tiny blush before returning his focus to Shoto. If you're only going to do everything on your own ... then you won't be able to make it far as a hero, Izuku said. You declared war on me earlier, but it sounded hollow. So now I'll make a declaration of war on you. I'll make sure to beat you, and make you understand how useless your promise is for being a hero. As Izuku and Hilda walked off, Katsuki nodded his head as he and Kirby discreetly followed after them. That's telling that stuck-up two-faced prick that being a hero doesn't involve people keeling over to you because you have a sad backstory. Meanwhile, Endeavor was having his own private conversation with Garp. Shoto's already been surpassed in 2 different events. If he has any hope of standing alongside those other brats, he needs to learn to accept both halves of himself, Endeavor said with annoyance. Well, they did push him into using his fire, if only for a little bit in the last minute of the cavalry battle. Garp pointed out. Still, it seems your ambitions finally failed you, NJ. I gave Shoto everything, but I fear in doing so, I only made him weaker, Endeavor said. After I graduated from UA, I had already climbed my way to the number 2 pro hero spot, succeeding Rayleigh-sensei. It was because I made that climb that I understood. Unless I reached the summit, it was all for nothing. If all I cared about was titles, I could have worn a smile and played the part of the lovable idiot like All Might. But I wanted to be the strongest. Brat, Garp snapped as he smacked Endeavor upside the head with his fist. Did you really forget my teachings? If strength were all that mattered, you'd be the number 1 pro hero already. But no, you never do anything to inspire the people you're supposed to protect. Roger may have been a bonehead, but he was the best man around. I'd have figured you'd have learned something from him by now, since you're as old as he was when he bit the bullet. Garp then turned with a huff, giving one last meaningful look toward his former student. You need to learn soon enough that it wasn't strength that propelled Toshi above you ... It was heart. Something you need to better understand ... For your family's sake and for yours as well. Welcome back, sports fans. It's almost time for the final game of the festival. But before that, good news to those who couldn't make the cut. You can still get some attention in the super fun side games we've prepared. After all, what kind of sports festival only has 3 events? A lame one. Present Mike guffawed. Emmy's been rubbing off on you for sure, show. As the freshman entered the stage, Tetsu was chatting with Juzo before raising a question. Hey, where are Kendo and the rest of the girls? In fact, where are all the girls in the hero course? I think Minta, Kaminari, and Kosai told them something. They seemed hesitant about it, but Nimona convinced them to give it a shot. It was then everyone noticed something. Aizawa could only groan into his palm while Present Mike raised an incredulous eyebrow. It looks like the girls of Class 1A and 1B have gone full fanservice mode. Sure enough, the girls of Class 1A and 1B were all in cheerleading uniforms. Hilda was quite proud to show off all her pale fat flesh, which was perfectly hugged by her uniform, which Momo created personally to match and fit her size snugly and comfortably. Why did I let Minta and Kaminari convince us to do this? Momo sighed. Hey, cheer up. Kosai did the same thing to us, Itsuka said, patting her on the back. I don't mind too much. Toru giggled, shaking her pom-poms. Let's give it our all. Indeed, they did have a point to let us get noticed by some strong female pros, Penny pointed out. Yeah, plus, it's not like most of us have anything else to do, Setsuna grinned in agreement. Plus, we can still show off with this. Come on girls, let me hear those cheers. And hey, at least those boys were honest about it. Nimona said. What's your stance on this, Mifa? Well, I don't mind all that much, to be honest. All right everyone, let's have fun competing in the recreational games, Present Mike announced. And when that's over, 32 from the 8 teams that made it to the finals will duke it out in an elimination tournament style, 1-on-1. It'll be my pleasure showing up those arrogant Class 1A dogs. Monoma huffed. I'll show them that we in Class 1B are just as powerful as they are. Give the hate boner a rest, Monoma. Away sighed. The final tournament is about to proceed. Midnight called out. We have a total of 32 students going into this. This year we'll be having one-on-one fights, full contact allowed. To spice things up, we'll be randomizing the fights. So, I guess that means we have no idea who's fighting who? Huh, Rebecca noted. The world of heroics is unpredictable indeed, Ijiru voiced. Unless we learn to adapt to the ever-changing winds of destiny, we can't survive the storm, Fumikage noted. An excellent challenge, indeed. And here are the randomized matchups of round 1. Present Mike announced as the Jumbotron showed who'd be fighting who. Izuku Midoriya vs Aojiro Mashiro. Hilda Yasakani vs Hitoshi Shinso, Inio Torkiroshi vs Monoma Nito, Shoto Todoroki vs Cyril Hanta, Katsuki Bakugo vs Ochako Ururaka, Penny Polandina vs Juzo Honuki, Kirby Sakurai vs Kosai Tsuburaba, Mifa Hashimoto vs Sen Kaibara, Nia Hankoma vs Awase Yostsu, Rebecca Santiago vs Kirawaro Shihai, Yamona Blackheart Goldenlian vs Fio Jeremy, Tenya Ida vs Meihatsu, Momoye Irazu vs Fumikage Tokoyami, Denki Kaminari vs Ibara Shizaki, Ijiru Kirishima vs Tetsu, Mina Ashido vs Yuuga Aoyama. Seriously, Ijiru and Tetsu called out. How the hell does this keep happening? Let's hope we both face each other in this tournament, Katsuki said to Izuku. And I know about that one power of yours that makes you immune to explosions. I should know, you used it on me once back in elementary. To be fair, you did lash out at me when you lost your temper, Izuku pointed out. But in the spirit of fairness, I promise I won't use it on you here. That'd just be using the power of the as a crutch. Alright, let's leave the tournament aside for a momentary interlude, President Mike announced. Let's have fun with recreation. Once the side games finished and the final competitors had been given time to prep, Cementos used his quirk to create an arena for the competitors to battle in. Alright, sports fans, President Mike called out. Are you ready? 'Cause the final tournament is about to begin. The crowd cheered as Izuku and Aojiro waited in opposite wings. Izuku held his hand over his hat, shading his eyes with a smile while Aojiro kept a look of focused discipline. Let's introduce our first two fighters. First, our class valedictorian. He's arguably one of the strongest heroes in training the world's ever seen, with a dozen different powers he can pick and choose from. Give it up for Izuku Midoriya. Izuku walked out to uproaring applause, giving some time to wave to his family and his teachers. Next, we have the Kung Fu fighting master. He may look plain, but that tail of his can pack a huge wallop. Introducing Aojiro Mashiro. Did he really have to say that? Aojiro sighed as he walked out. The rules are simple. Full use of quirks is authorized, so long as it doesn't endanger your opponent's life. To win, you must either immobilize your opponent, take them out of the ring, or force them to forfeit, Aizawa said. And don't worry, we have Recovery Girl as well as Sister Sage and her apprentice on standby for any injuries. Actually, Shizune is my adopted daughter, Tsunade silently pointed out as Toshinori chuckled. Aojiro sighed as he looked at Izuku, a determined look on his face as he clenched his fists, his tail slapping down a few times on the ground as he took a fighting stance. Midoriya, considering your powers, I probably won't last long ... but I'm not going to back down for anything. Izuku smiled and got into his own fighting stance. I wouldn't have it any other way. As soon as President Mike said the word go, Aojiro dashed forward at blinding speeds. Izuku's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized that as the Rokushiki technique, Soru. Izuku's haki kicked in as he crossed his arms, coating them in diamonds with the as Aojiro's tail slammed into it. However, Izuku noticed that it was coated in a familiar black armor. You can use haki too, observation and armament, to be exact, Aojiro clarified before leaping into the air. And then swiping his tail at such high speeds, it created a powerful air blade. Since his tail counts as a fifth limb, he can use it with the Rankyaku technique as well, Izuku realized as he leaped into the air to meet Aojiro before stretching his arms back. Gum Gum Bazooka. Aojiro used Kami-e to fluidly move around Izuku's thrusting palms before grabbing his wrists and swinging him over his head with all his might. However, Izuku quickly exploded into pure smoke with the and snaked back to the ground as Aojiro landed in front of him as he reformed. Not bad, Midoriya, but get ready for this secret technique. Aojiro then took a stance, his muscles tensing as Izuku realized he was now using Tekai. However, the tailed boy then lunged forward as he spun his tail like a coiling snake striking. Iron Body Kenpo, Snake Monkey Tail. Izuku dodged a few of the strikes, but the last one hit him in the chest and sent him skidding back. The greenette coughed slightly before seeing Aojiro leaping into the air and diving down with a downward tail strike. But this time, Izuku was ready as bear paw prints formed on his palms which he held out in front of Aojiro. Puni. Aojiro felt the full force of his attack repel back at him, sending him flying out of the arena and landing hard on his back, grunting in pain as he skidded across before going limp, sighing in defeat. Damn it, Aojiro Mashiro has been knocked out of bounds. Izukumidoriya wins, Midnight announced. WHOOO. Go Izuku. Tatsumaki and Fubuki cheered while Inko sobbed with relief, Shanks comfortingly stroking her head. Izuku walked over to Aojiro and helped him to his feet, giving the tailed boy a smile. That was a pretty surprising match you gave me. Don't let anybody say you're too plain ever again. Aojiro chuckled as he accepted Izuku's hand. I'll try my hardest. I trained too hard to just be written off. After that thrilling round, let's go to the next one, President Mike called out. First, we have the big beautiful lady with full pride in her body and the perfect mix of strong and plush. Give it up for Hilda Yasakani. Hilda sauntered onto the arena, a proud smirk on her face as she waved to her friends. Next, we have the dark horse from General Ed. But given his amazing performance so far, there's talk that he might be bumped up to the hero course. Keep your mouth shut around him, or you might wake up in a cell. Introducing Itoshi Shinso. Itoshi walked out, a look of determination on his face. Hilda grinned as she took a sumo wrestling stance while Hitoshi took a more slouched fighting pose. Guess this is a test of spirit? Huh, you may be bigger and stronger than me, Yasakani, but I've got a secret weapon that can decide this without even having to lift a finger. Oh really, and what's that, sweetums? Suddenly, Hilda felt her body go stiff. She could still move somewhat, but it felt like she was wading through molasses. Or better yet, it was like her fat was overwhelming her muscles. Hey, what's going on? She said as she struggled to move around. Itoshi, for his part, was just as surprised. Well, I'll be damned. Nobody told me you could resist brainwashing. So Shinso's quirk is mind control via verbal response. Izuku muttered to himself in interest. That is a pretty powerful quirk. Even he wasn't expecting Hilda to be able to resist. Guess that's another facet of her quirk to consider. Then added, it seems that her brain counts as part of her body to fix itself in case of anything detrimental, Penny noted. I theorized that it's creating new neural pathways to counter the effects of brainwashing. Back in the arena, Hilda groaned as she took a few heavy steps forward, struggling to push through the brainwashing. Itoshi on his side was debating on whether to attack and try pushing her out of bounds or see what happens next with her. There's only one thing I can try, Hilda thought to herself, remembering when Toshinori told her and Izuku about the dangerous drawbacks of OFA. If I can just focus power into my arm. With a fierce cry of determination, she thrust her arm to the ground, his gym uniform tearing apart at the sleeve as the full force of OFA ripped through it. Her arm was in intense pain, but the damage was already healed and she felt her mind clear up instantly. Izuku watched, clearly on the edge of his seat with worry for his friend, while the others in Class 1 shared his concern to varying degrees. Luckily, they wouldn't have to worry as Hilda was back to her feet in no time, flexing her flabby but firm bicep as it fully healed. She was able to break free from the brainwashing all on her own, Toshinori said proudly. And look at young Shinso. He's completely flummoxed. Let's hope he's able to bounce back from this, Tsunade said. So, you were able to figure out how to break free? Huh. Itoshi said as he ran toward Hilda. Gotta say, I'm pretty damn jealous. Hilda narrowed her eyes before resuming her sumo stance and then thrusting her palm forward with OFA powering it up. JOHTO smash. Hitoshi couldn't react in time as the shockwave from the attack rippled through the air, knocking him right out of the arena and hard on his back. Hitoshi Shinso has been knocked out of bounds. The winner is Hilda Yasakani, Midnight announced. Hitoshi groaned as he got to his feet before noticing Hilda offering her hand to him, which he took. Honestly, if I had known you could do that, I'd probably have tried to stop you breathing to knock you out. That's a pretty damn powerful quirk you have there, Hilda noted. You really think so? All my life, my peers have been telling me that it'd be good for a villain to have. Hitoshi sighed. But I never wanted to be a villain. I only ever wanted to be a hero. Any quirk can be heroic if used correctly, Hilda pointed out. I mean, you could easily put a stop to a hostage situation without risking civilian casualties. You just gotta get the guy with the gun talking and then boom, you got him caught. Hitoshi was surprised. Even his friends from middle school had never really pointed out such useful applications for his quirk. He then smiled as he put his hands in his pockets and began walking off. You're a pretty sweet girl, Yasakani. Any guy would be lucky to have you. Hilda giggled. I have a cousin named Rosa. She likes guys with a cool, mysterious air like you do. Maybe I can set you two up. I'll make a note of that. Hitoshi chuckled before noticing his classmates from General Ed were cheering him on, and even plenty of pro heroes were noting how useful his quirk was. In fact, many of them felt his shortcoming wasn't his quirk, but his lack of real combat experience. For the first time in his life, Hitoshi Shinso had people encouraging him. So we have one student from General Ed that has the true spirit of a hero, and one from the hero course that is far too full of envy for his peers and believes in a class rivalry system that doesn't even exist in the first place, Nedzu noted from the VIP room. Vlad King sighed. We'll have to see how Monoma behaves in the next match, though I'm not too optimistic about how he'll present himself. Alright, time for the next match. In the red corner, we've got the elemental beast of Class 1A, BNIOTOREKUROSHI. Present Mike called out. And his opponent, the copycat from Class 1B with a punchable face, Monoma Nito. Ben kept a cool head as he walked into the arena while Monoma stepped in with his ever-so-insufferable smug smile on his face. So then, I finally have the chance to prove Class 1B's superiority. Monoma announced smugly. I hardly see how I could lose when all I need to do is copy that powerful quirk of yours. Your quirk is indeed useful, Ben noted, but you prefer snatching from other people and using it against them instead of using it to help them out by doubling their capabilities. Monoma scoffed. My esteemed peers in Class 1B say the same thing, but I'd prefer using your precious powers against you. That way, you'll see you're not so special as you arrogant fools think you are. Ben just shook his head. You know, you put on a nice smile for the camera, but you really are ugly inside, aren't you? Piece of advice. If you're going to be two-faced, at least make sure one of them is pretty. Monoma scowled for a moment. And once again you prove my point. Only you barbarians would stoop to name-calling. Says the guy who thinks we're just a bunch of arrogant showboaters when we were only trying to fight to survive an attack that could have killed us. Ben scowled back. Honestly, I'm trying to understand why you hate me and my classmates so much, and I want to look at things from your perspective. But I can't fit my head that far up my own ass. Monoma rolled his eyes as he used tetsus to coat his arms in metal before rushing forward and reaching his hand out to touch Ben, a smirk on his face. You mock me now, but you'll soon be changing your tune when I use the quirk of one of Class 1A's most powerful members against them. Monoma then decided to try and use fire to blast Ben away only for absolutely nothing to happen. Confused, Monoma tried to summon ice, wind, or even earth, but still, nothing. What's going on? I should have a basic understanding of your quirk thanks to mine. How is it I can't make yours work? Ben smirked. Because my power isn't actually a quirk. Ben voiced his words loud enough for the crowd to hear, causing them to gasp in surprise and mutter amongst themselves. Guess you and I aren't the only ones with secrets, Hilda. Kirby noted. But that's impossible. Monoma sputtered. How can you do all that and have no quirk? You're lying. Ben narrowed his eyes. Am I lying, Monoma? Do you really think Class 1 is full of liars who are so full of themselves they'd lie about fighting to survive against villains out to kill them? Would I lie about having a power I never truly wanted yet still am learning to make my own? Monoma scowled in anger as he enlarged his hands with Izuku's and rushed forward to punch Ben, but he simply blocked with a psychic barrier of pink psionic energy. Shut up. I'm not going to let you bastards overshadow my class. We're the real stars, not you. Does the rest of your class even share your sentiment? Ben asked coldly. I don't think so. It's all in your head, Monoma. This whole rivalry you've imagined doesn't exist. We're all training to be heroes. There's no need to have us fight over who's better. Easy for you to say. You're the ones with the showy quirks. You have all the attention of everyone on you. You're all just attention-grabbing fools stealing the spotlight from those who deserve it just as much as you do. Ben sighed. You're so childish it's funny. Do you honestly think that we wanted to be attacked by villains? Give me a break. No one in your class is obsessed with Class 1, only you, and do you know why? You're useless on your own. Your quirk depends on other quirk users to work, and even then you don't keep the quirks that you copy. Monoma backed away, his punches slowing down as his eyes widened at Ben's words. Memories of his childhood of people teasing him for his quirk and his desire to prove them all wrong, that he was powerful and he could stand in the spotlight above all others. Deep down you know that you're nothing but a goddamn copycat. Keep drinking the Kool-Aid, Monoma, because the truth is no one cares about what you think of us. Ben spat. Shut up. Shut up. Monoma yelled as he ran forward and used Sen's quirk to spin his hands like drills, attempting to punch through Ben's psionic barrier. But the elemental warrior knocked away his arms and then stomped his fist, creating a shockwave that knocked Monoma off his feet. Suddenly, an ice wall appeared behind Monoma as Ben punched him in the face, knocking him back into it before rushing up and following with a flurry of punches. Before Monoma could retaliate, Ben grabbed him by the face and threw him onto the ground. Seriously, why do you even want to be a hero? Did people tease you for your quirk? If so, that's understandable. But what makes you a hypocrite is you mocking others for things out of their control. Honestly, you disgust me, Monoma Nito. The blonde copycat growled furiously as he charged at Ben, using to turn his fists into metal and try throwing a punch at Ben, but he blocked with his arms coated in its own metal sheen. He then dodged another haymaker from Monoma before lashing out with a jab to the face, knocking the blonde back as he covered his face before looking down at his hands, seeing blood coming out of his nose and mouth, his eyes widening in horror and anger. Seriously, you can dish out words but you can't take them, can you? Ben asked. Your pride and envy are unbecoming of a hero, no matter how hard you want to prove yourself. Monoma began breathing faster and heavier before screaming out in fury as he lunged at Ben, throwing a barrage of punches which he casually dodged before finally blocking the last punch, Monoma gasping in pain as Ben squeezed, the bones in his hand crunching. Now then ... how about some humility? Everyone in the stands winced at seeing what terrible things were being done to Monoma in the arena. First, Ben started off with something simple, pummeling him with heavy blows and kicking him in the sides. Then he started getting more creative. As Monoma tried to throw a fist forward at Ben, he ducked out of the way of it and hooked Monoma's arm over his shoulder, grabbing it with his hand. He then flipped Monoma over his shoulder, slamming him onto the ground heavily. For the next few minutes, every time Monoma got back to his feet and tried to attack Ben, he'd be reversed and thrown, ending up sprawled on the floor again. Then finally, Monoma dazed and bruised, barely remaining standing. Ben then slammed his fists to the ground and a giant stone hand erupted from the ground, striking Monoma in the jaw hard and fast. A few people swore they could hear the teeth breaking all the way from his seat. Monoma wasn't awake after that. He crumpled to the ground like a sack of wet laundry. Midnight didn't even need to come over and examine him to declare Ben the winner. Not entirely without mercy, Ben walked over to Monoma's crumpled form and placed his hands gently on him, red, gold, and orange energy flowing around him as Monoma's injuries faded into non-existence. Hopefully you can learn a valuable lesson from this. Talk shit, get hit. Ben then picked Monoma up and carried him out of the arena calmly and with no more words as the crowd watched in stunned silence. I think Ben was working out some aggression there, Kirby whispered to Katsuki, who just smirked. If we end up fighting, I want to see just how much that guy can do. Shoto was walking through the halls to his first match. His mind was on how Izuku, Hilda, and Ben won their matches and just how skilled they were but remained determined to beat them. However, he was snapped out of his musings when he saw his father waiting for him. What do you want? You're behaving disgracefully, Shoto. You saw how much power your peers were able to put into their fights. If you truly hope to overcome any of them, you need to let go of this childish rebellion, Endeavor said in a disappointed, firm tone. You're only hurting yourself in the end the longer you keep this farce going. Shoto clenched his fist. I don't care what you say. I will never give you the satisfaction of being what you want me to be. Endeavor gave Shoto an annoyed glare before letting out a regretful sigh as he walked away. Shoto stepping out into the arena. Here we are, at the fourth match of the tournament. Present Mike called out. First up we have a skilled and maneuverable young man. A hardware store's best friend and running villain's worst nightmare. Zero Hanta. Zero came out, stretching out his arms as he entered the ring. And his opponent, the icy hot apprentice who so far has only been showing half of what he can do, but let's see if he can show his full strength. Beat. Shoto Todoroki. The match began, and Zero quickly launched tape from his elbows, managing to tie up Shoto and start throwing him around. I know you're way stronger than me, Todoroki ... but I won't back down. Zero's making to give it his all, Aojiro noted. Ben nodded. He's probably making as big a show as he can. Against someone like Todoroki, he might not stand a chance, so he figures he might as well make a good impression. Just then, a massive eruption occurred. Shoto had made a massive glacier, so big that everyone was frozen. Though only Zero and Midnight were frozen because of the actual ice. Shoto quickly thawed out Zero so that he wouldn't be in danger of frostbite. Sorry, I went too far with that. I was angry and couldn't think straight. Cementos sighed. I'll let this one slide since you immediately worked to correct your error. Just make sure not to go that far again. Ben stood up and then held out his hands as massive bursts of flames erupted from them, melting the glacier near instantly with how much heat he was putting out. The heroes working security had seen both events and were flabbergasted at what had happened. Geez, that kid is powerful. Middle Bat gawked. What do you expect from the son of Endeavor? Death Arms pointed out. Midnight was also able to thaw out, shivering slightly and her teeth chattering as she struggled to warm herself up. As since Cementos has given his PP permit, this match is officially over by immobilization. The winner is Shoto Todoroki. Thanks for warming us up, Torkuroshi, Ochako said, still shivering. I gotta ask ... you just said your powers aren't a quirk ... when you were talking to Todoroki earlier. Izuku said, getting a clearer picture of Ben's past. Yeah, I did have powers infused into me that weren't quirk related. I'd rather not get too deep into them. The elemental boy sighed. Too many memories ... but you can technically say I'm quirkless in hindsight. And yet you still can do all those crazy powers. Minoru pointed out before getting out of his seat. Now if anyone will excuse me, I need to change my pants. Garp was watching with disapproval at Shoto's actions and shook his head. He had a feeling that Enji was feeling the same way as him. That damn brat of Enji's lacks control. He's too angry and unfocused. If this keeps up, he'll be even worse than his father was, whether he realizes it or not. Guess it's time to face the music, Katsuki grumbled as he walked up to the arena. In this corner, we have the bombastic bombardier with a fiery temper, Katsuki Bakugo, and his opponent, the girl who can defy gravity and inertia with a single touch, Ochako Ururaka. Ochako had a nervous look on her face but hid it well with a determined gaze as she and Katsuki both stepped into the arena. I'm worried about this match. Bakugo has been known to be quite aggressive, after all, Tenya muttered. I almost don't want to watch, Kyoka admitted. Will you guys relax? Kachin knows when too far is too far. Kirby spoke in defense of her boyfriend. Katsuki took a deep breath as he prepared himself. He was vaguely aware of Achako's quirk, so he had to be careful. Give me everything you got, round face. The explosive blonde said. Winning means nothing if it's just handed to you. I also hope you can show you have what it takes to beat me. Ochako nodded in understanding and got into a fighting stance. As soon as the match was called, the brunette immediately rushed forward, intent on tackling Katsuki. Katsuki, in kind, brought up his right arm. Ochako quickly ducked to avoid the incoming explosion but failed to calculate how much force it put out, sending her reeling back. Quickly, the explosive blonde jumped back and looked at the smoke, keeping his guard up in case Ochako tried something. Suddenly, he saw a shadow appear through the smoke and quickly launched another attack, only for his eyes to widen in shock when he touched the ground instead. It turned out Ochako had ditched the top part of her uniform, leaving her with only her tank top and pants, and thrown it using her quirk to get the drop on Katsuki. Now's my chance, Ochako thought as she threw her hand at Katsuki. If I can make him float. Her thoughts were interrupted when Katsuki blasted her away without hesitation. Holy shit, his reflexes are insane, Shiro exclaimed. Man, he's not holding anything back, Ijiru muttered. Ochako skidded across the ground on her back, groaning in pain before getting back up to her feet, giving Katsuki a calculated glint as she breathed heavily. Katsuki was also giving her a close look, both of them circling around each other. Gotta finish this fast. Round face can use whatever rubble I make as ammo against me. I gotta keep Bakugo guessing. I only have one shot at this. Ochako kept up the strategy of moving in close, then backing out of the way using her quirk as Katsuki created more and more craters in the arena. Young Ururaka knows she's at a disadvantage and is giving it her all just the same, Toshinori noted. What do you think, Tsunade? The woman nodded in agreement. She's got an effective strategy at play, but someone needs to help that girl build up her stamina. Hey, how can you say you want to be a hero like that? Shouted a male pro-hero, standing up in outrage, unable to handle the sight of Ochako being blasted so many times. If there's such a huge difference in your abilities, then just hurry up and send her out of bounds. Stop bullying and playing with the girl. Another female pro-hero jumped up next to him to join in. Yeah. This started uproaring the crowd into booing Katsuki for seemingly unheroic actions until Aizawa called him out over the mic. Was that a pro saying he's playing around? How many years have you been a pro? The booing instantly halted as Aizawa glared at the one who started it all. If you're saying that with a straight face, there's no point in you watching anymore, so go home and look into changing careers. The words hit the pro-hero harshly, who looked like he was about to cry. He wanted to argue, to bluster, to say something, but no words came out. He would be arguing against a teacher at UA, the most prestigious school known for its heroics course. That would not look good for him. In order to be a teacher of UA, they had to pass a strict test among other requirements. In short, arguing with someone from UA would just make you look like a fool, especially if it was Nedzu someone was to argue with. Bakugo is being careful because he's acknowledging the strength of his opponent who's made it this far. It's because he's doing everything he can to win that he can't go easy on her or let his guard down. Because in our field, doing such a thing is a death sentence. So do us all a favor and either sit down or go home and quit being a hero. That goes for the second person who joined in on that. Garp laughed as he stood up. The hobo is right. In battle, one cannot underestimate their opponent. It's folly to assume anyone could be weak based on looks alone. I agree, Shanks said, also standing up. Bakugo is far more of a hero than any of you who simply see him as a cowardly bully. And Ururaka is pouring every ounce of her determination and drive into this match. This is a contest of equals, and only a fool would believe otherwise. After hearing such harsh words, both pro-heroes sat back down meekly, not wanting to draw any more attention. Glad to see somebody gets it, Katsuki smirked. Anyone who can take one of my full power explosions and still stand can't be considered weak or defenseless. Ochako smiled back. I think it's right about time. You were probably expecting me to try this, but the problem is, that kept you laser focused on taking me out. Katsuki suddenly saw Ochako press her fingers together in the way she did when deactivating her quirk. He suddenly looked up and many in the audience did as well, seeing thousands of pieces of debris floating in midair which were now coming down in a meteor shower. At the same time, Ochako rushed at Katsuki, hoping to overwhelm him from two different angles. You almost had me, round face, Katsuki shouted. But I still have one last move I can try. Suddenly, honest-to-goodness Conqueror's haki exploded out of him. Ochako was nearly overwhelmed by the sheer willpower as the force of it disintegrated the debris, blowing dust everywhere. Despite the pressure, Ochako continued forward, a small flicker of haki glowing off her as well. So she's haki sensitive too, huh? The explosive blonde thought. Guess you really do have the chops, round face. Ochako then let out a cry of determination despite the overwhelming force turning her legs to jelly, and threw her fist at Katsuki, whose eyes widened in amazement when it was coated in the familiar black coating of armament haki. Instinctively, Katsuki threw his arms up, only to stop when he noticed no impact was hitting him. He then realized Ochako was unconscious yet still standing on her feet, a look of pure determination glaring forward all the same. Damn, she won't give up until the very end, he thought before turning to the crowd. You see that, you prejudiced bastards? That right there is a real hero. One who refuses to give up, even when her own body tells her she can't go on. You still think I'm just picking on her? That she's so weak that she needs help making it this far? The two pro-heroes who called Katsuki out earlier were now even more humiliated as Midnight quickly came over to check up on Ochako. Ochako Ururaka is officially knocked out. The winner of the 5th bracket is Katsuki Bakugo. Ochako woke up in the medical area, recovery girl having healed her injuries with help from Tsunade's adopted daughter and sidekick, Shizune. That was amazing work. Even though you didn't win, you made people realize what a true hero is all about. Shizune smiled. Even if some of the pros in the stands needed that kick in the pants from Bakugo to realize it. Shizune's prized pet pig, Tun, oinked in agreement, climbing onto Ochako's bed and nuzzling her affectionately as if telling her that she did good all the same. Izuku, Tenya, Hilda, and Kirby suddenly all came in, all of them with excited looks. That was fantastic work, Tenya said. For a moment I didn't realize you had a plan in mind, Ururaka. I knew I couldn't just race at Bakugo and tag him out of the arena, Ochako said. He'd see it coming easily. Hilda suddenly pulled Ochako into a soft, marshmallow embrace, making the brunette blush as the plumper girl squeezed her close and gently. You were amazing out there, Okin. I don't care if you lost. You proved yourself a true hero. Ochako teared up and hugged back as Izuku smiled at the sight while Kirby chuckled and whispered to Tenya. Bakugo actually was singing her praises to me privately. He still has his pride, after all. The next match was between Penny and Juzo Honuki, which Penny easily won by flying above the softened ground Juzo made with his quirk. She then used her configuration, pop off to fire sticky green gelatin spheres that latched onto Juzo's hands, allowing her to tackle him out of bounds. Next was Kirby against Tsuburaba. The boy tried using his quirk to erect a barrier in front of Kirby, who simply transformed into her hammer form and smashed it to pieces before knocking poor Tsuburaba out of bounds with a swing to the stomach. After that was Mifa against Sen Kaibara. Sen tried going for a full frontal assault, using his quirk to spin his arms like drills to knock Mifa out of bounds. However, the fish-esque girl was quite fast and graceful, bobbing and weaving his attacks before knocking him out with a concussive blast of water from her hands. Nia was against Awase next. Awase tried using his quirk to pin Nia's feet to the floor, but she showed off cat-like agility and superhuman speed and strength thanks to her quirk, which essentially gave her every kind of cat-esque power one could imagine. The battle between Rebecca and Kiwara was a curb stomp in the former's favor. All Rebecca had to do was pull out a flashbang grenade from a compartment created in her stomach and blind Kiwara with it before knocking him out of bounds with a non-lethal shotgun round. Alright, after some fast and loose matches, this one is sure to be a treat. Present Mike grinned. First, we have the feisty shapeshifting beast girl, Nimona Blackheart Goldenlion, and her opponent, the big girl herself with a knack for building gadgets that'll blow your mind. It's Fio Jeremy. Nimona did a few warm-up stretches while Fio finished eating a bao dumpling, rubbing her belly afterward. Pre-fight snack, Nimona playfully asked, leaning over. Yeah, helps calm my nerves. Fio giggled as she took a sumo stance. You'll find I have plenty of tools at my disposal. And don't worry, since I'm a support course student, they're approved. Nimona smirked, her eyes glowing fiercely with competitive spirit. Midnight soon raised her whip and called the match to begin as Nimona transformed into a cheetah and dashed at inhuman speeds toward Fio. Fio took out several parts kept in a backpack she was carrying and configured them with her quirk into a fully automated steel gauntlet, which she used to punch at Nimona, who quickly jumped over the blow and went sailing over Fio, stopping herself from running out of bounds. The thing about my quirk is that not only does it let me repair any damage to any machine, I can also disassemble and reassemble anything mechanical in nature to make all sorts of tools. Fio demonstrated her quirk once more by configuring more parts into a net launcher, firing it at Nimona, who quickly shapeshifted into a housefly and buzzed around the net before turning back to normal and growing a pair of dragon wings to fly into Fio, ramming into her stomach, making her wheeze. Metal. The shapeshifting girl grinned before transforming into a grizzly bear and preparing to belly flop on top of Fio. I don't think so. The rotund bespectacled girl shouted as she pulled out one last set of parts, turning it into a cannon that fired a powerful blast of energy that sent Nimona flying before she could react, landing out of bounds and groaning in pain. Nimona is out of bounds. Fio wins. Fio cheered and flashed a pair of peace signs before lumbering over to Nimona and helping her up to her feet. Yep, I felt that one. Fio giggled. Come on, let's get you treated. Next up we have the Rocket Speedster, coming from a long line of heroes with turbine engines for organs. Give it up for Tenya Ida. Tenya walked up to the arena, a look of determination on his face. And our second big brain sweetheart from the support course, a fully equipped gadget dynamo, ready to show her stuff. Let's hear it for Mei Hatsume. Mei was decked out in her own support gear but seemed confused when she noticed something about Tenya. Hey, what gives? Where's the gear I offered you before the match? Tenya adjusted his glasses. Your friend Theo informed me of your intentions to showcase the gear you created. Honestly, I'm fine with that, since we're all here to get attention for our chosen future. But don't you think the CEOs are hoping to impress will think better of you if you offer a personal demonstration, rather than use someone else as a guinea pig? Haha, good on Jeremy for that. Nina giggled. Ida is always so earnest. He would have said yes to what Hatsume asked him without question otherwise. Tenya lowered his body, ready to fight. Don't just tell them about your products. Show them what your creations can do. Mei was so busy processing what Tenya had just said that she was nearly unprepared as he dashed her at max speed. She quickly lowered her goggles and launched herself out of the way using her hydraulic attachments. Her system sensors let her detect where Tenya was coming from, but with no way to predict the match, she was flustered and scrambling for a solution. Well, if you don't want to use my super cute babies, then I can always use them myself. She hit a switch, triggering a package to drop. It's a good thing I registered for my instant delivery cases just in case. She donned herself with special gear to lighten her body and improve her stability. She then ran right at Tenya using electromagnetic shoes to increase speed, and special gauntlets to improve punching power. Tenya dodged the first blow and prepared to come in with a leg sweep, but Mei quickly pulled out a gun meant to fire capture nets, forcing him backward to avoid getting trapped. He didn't quite succeed but was able to get up and launched himself full force at Mei, catching her off guard and causing her to land out of the ring. The winner by ring out, Tenya Ida. Midnight announced. Mei was left stunned by all the events that happened in such quick succession, but then her quirk showed her something. All the CEOs she had wanted to impress were talking excitedly. Those gadgets seem very useful for hero work. It'd be easy to market them, especially to heroes struggling against villains. A few tweaks to her creations and she could easily be the next great support inventor. Mei's eyes began to tear up, her smile widening. Tenya was just getting out of the net when he was shocked by Mei leaping into his arms and planting a big fat kiss right on the lips. Thank you for the wonderful advice. Man, even Eda is getting game. Minoru cried from the seats. When is it gonna be my turn? When you stop acting like a perverted loser. Kayuka dryly answered as the dwarfish boy just slumped, a dark cloud forming over his head. Well, I like to think there's one for everyone out there. Penny said optimistically. Hey, it looks like Ida has stepped into the real world. Ben chuckled as he saw Tenya frozen in shock, a faint hint of pink on his face. Go get some, brother. Let's move on to the next match. Present Mike called out. First we have the Dark Avian Samurai, Fumikage Tokoyami, and our second recommendation student, the great creator who can literally pull anything from her body, Momo Yaoyorozu. This oughta be fun, Katsuki smirked, seeing that stuck-up wreck girl get taken down a peg. Bakugo, that's not cool, Izuku called out with a dirty look. As Momo prepared to charge Fumikage, Dark Shadow quickly made himself appear, lunging toward the creator girl, who quickly created a shield to block the incoming blow, being pushed back in the process. This is most troubling. Momo's main issue is that she tends to overanalyze before a confrontation, Penny said. As for Tokoyami, he has that covered thanks to Dark Shadow being a sentient entity with its own mind, essentially giving him a second brain. Momo was kept purely on the defensive from Dark Shadow's fierce onslaught, creating shields that were easily smashed through by the sentient quirk. However, she then realized that the symbiotic duo had stopped. Now's my chance. Momo Yaoyorozu has been knocked out of bounds. The winner is Fumikage Tokoyami, Midnight announced. Momo's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked to see she was indeed pushed out of bounds. As the full weight of her humiliating defeat set in, she fell to her knees with a far-off look in her eyes, which didn't go unnoticed by her classmates, none more so than Shoto. She came here hoping to showcase her skills, only to get beaten too easily. Geez, poor Yaoyorozu, Present Mike said sympathetically before regaining his focus. Anyway, on to the next match. We have the sparkling laser boy, Yuuga Aoyama, and the glamorous acid queen, Mina Ashido. Oh man, I wish I could see Ashido get clothing damage, Minoru said, only to be bonked by a giant fist of stone created by Ben. Shut up, Minta. You're only making yourself look bad. considering the fact we're all classmates. Ashido and Aoyama both have a good idea of each other's quirks from all our Heroics 101 classes, Izuku noted. The difference is that Ashido can constantly produce acid from her bodily fluids, while Aoyama can only fire off his naval laser for so long before his stomach starts to hurt. But Fio helped upgrade his belt. Surely he can last a bit longer, right? Zero pointed out. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Penny said. As the fight began, Mina continuously skated away from Yuuga's laser shots. The upgraded belt from Fio was a godsend and had been approved for use in the final tournament, but he was running out of stored charges and would soon have to force the lasers out like he normally did. Here's my shot. She tossed a glob of acid, successfully hitting Yuuga's belt, not only shorting it out but causing his pants to fall down. Monda. He tried to pull up his pants to preserve his dignity, but dignity was ultimately the least of his concerns as Mina got close and nailed him with a hard uppercut to his jaw. Winner by knockout, Mina Ashido. The next match between Denki and Ibara ended rather quickly, with Denki unleashing his full electrical power, which was easily quashed out by Ibara's vines, leaving him dumbified and open to be restrained. Man, that was just embarrassing. Ben winced. Someone's gotta help Denki with controlling the electricity he creates. A loud thump was suddenly heard as everyone turned to see Setsuna holding an unconscious Monoma by the back of his collar. He was gonna try and start shit again, and I'm pretty sure we're all tired of it, right? You can say that again. Katsuki laughed. The final match of the first randomized bracket came down to both Ijiru and Tetsu basically slugging it out. After 10 straight minutes of wailing on each other in their hardened states, they ended up knocking themselves out when they punched each other across the face at the same time. Somehow, I knew that was gonna happen, Itsuka dryly noted. Same here, Kayuka voiced in agreement. After both boys had time to recover, they settled the draw with an arm wrestling match. It was here the difference in their quirks more clearly stood out. Tetsu was about pure offense, but his quirk could be drained from too much exertion. Meanwhile, Ijiru seemed more suited to defense, and his quirk had a set time limit. This gave the rock-hard redhead the advantage when Tetsu overextended, causing his metal casing to crack and letting Ijiru pin him to the mat. In spite of his victory, Ijiru still offered Tetsu a hand up. That was one heck of a manly contest. You put up a good fight. Tetsu smirked and accepted the help. Next time I'll make sure to add more iron to my breakfast. I could have gone on a little longer if I built up my metal deficiency. And with that, it's time to randomize the next rounds. Present Mike announced as the Jumbotron showed who would be fighting who, going by a chance spin before all the matches landed together. Izuku Midoriya vs Katsuki Bakugo. Benio Torkiroshi vs Shoto Todoroki. Hilda Yasakani vs Kirby Sakurai. Nifa Hashimoto vs Nia Hankoma. Rebecca Santiago vs Fio Jeremy. Kenya Ida vs Ibara Shozaki. Fumikage Tokoyami vs Mina Ashido. Ijiru Kirishima vs Penny Polandina. But first, before we get into these next exciting matches, we'll be taking a quick break. Present Mike said. After a 10-minute break, it was time for the second round of brackets to begin, this time with Izuku and Katsuki. This is it, the fated battle between rivals, Achako said with a look of anticipation on her face. Which one of our boys will make it to the next round, I wonder? Kirby giggled, with Hilda nodding in agreement while holding a big tub of popcorn in her arms. The crowd's going wild in anticipation. Present Mike called out. This first fight of the second round is bound to be epic. First, we have the righteous devil who's a Swiss Army knife of superpowers, Izuku Midoriya, and his opponent, the explosive bombardier, Katsuki Bakugo. All right, Deku, remember our deal, Katsuki said as he and Izuku stepped onto the arena. No cheesing it with that shitty bomb power of yours. Izuku nodded. Got it, but I'm still giving it all I have in this fight, you know. All right, it's time to begin clash. Katsuki and Izuku both disappeared in blurs, having both used Soru to move at supersonic speeds before clashing fists together. Conqueror's haki exploding outward as everyone reeled back in their seats in surprise. Whoa, going for a haki strike right off the bat. So manly, Ijiru exclaimed. Seeing as they were locked, Katsuki used his free hand to blast himself into the air before going in for a kick to Izuku's head. Unfortunately for him, Izuku grabbed his leg before slamming him into the ground. Katsuki growled as he quickly jumped back up, slamming his knee into Izuku's gut, making him gasp and sending him into the air. The blonde bomber then launched himself after Izuku with his explosions and covered both his fists in armament haki before slamming them down on Izuku's back with an axe handle, sending him crashing back down to the arena. Not bad, Bakugo, Izuku said as he picked himself off the ground before seeing Katsuki launch himself down like an air bomb, a fierce look in his red eyes as he fired a point-blank explosion in Izuku's face. Dude, overkill, much, Zero exclaimed. However, Izuku managed to turn his face into diamonds, with the force still pushing him back quite a bit as Katsuki landed across from him, taking a stance as the two kept their gaze on each other. "Come on, this isn't a challenge, Deku. I know you're stronger than this." Izuku smiled before taking a stance, squatting as he put a fist to the ground and hung his head low. His skin suddenly glowing pink as he used it to pump blood through his body faster than normal, steam emitting from his body. "Trust me, Kachin, I'm just getting started." Izuku then disappeared in the blink of an eye before reappearing in front of Katsuki. Gum Gear second. Katsuki immediately used Kami-e to dodge the onslaught of lightning-fast blows from Izuku while retaliating with his own rapid-fire explosive strikes. Neither managed to land a hit on the other for what felt like hours before they eventually punched each other across the face, sending them both to different sides, but not out of bounds. "That's more like it." Katsuki breathed heavily. "But it's high time we end this. I've been saving this move just for you." Izuku smiled. "Let's see it, Kachin." The explosive blonde couldn't help but smirk before throwing himself into the air and then spinning around, using his explosions to pick up momentum as he launched himself at Izuku like a torpedo. Izuku coating his arm in armament haki and stretching it back as far as he could. "Diku, Kiichan." Izuku's fist ignited from the friction as he snapped it forward to meet Katsuki, who slammed into it with all his might as the two attacks collided. Howitzer impact. Red Hawk. The impact caused a giant dust cloud to surround the duo as everyone tried to see anything. It was silent for a moment before the dust cleared, and everyone could see the duo again. Both Izuku and Katsuki had launched each other out of bounds from the sheer force of their attacks. Both of them were embedded in the walls surrounding the arena before they fell off and landed on the ground. Everyone watched with bated breath, wondering who had fallen unconscious first. Suddenly, Izuku slowly and shakily rose back to his feet, coughing weakly as Katsuki struggled to get up before slumping unconscious. Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya have knocked each other out of bounds. However, it seems Bakugo is unconscious, so that counts as the tie-breaking deal. Izukumi wins. Izuku limped over to Katsuki before wrapping his shoulder around his and helping him to his feet, slowly making the trek to the infirmary as the crowd cheered at the sportsmanship shown between them. "Well, I'll be damned." Ben chuckled. "Those two had me worried for a moment. Man, Midoriya and Bakugo are crazy." Minoru cried. "That probably scared off any pro heroes wanting to have them get into internships. I don't know, I think they just impressed plenty to still have a chance." Suyu noted. It was time for Ben to have his match against Shoto. As the Elementalist made his way to the arena, he was surprised to see Endeavor waiting there for him. "Can I help you?" Endeavor's hard gaze made Ben slightly uncomfortable before the flame hero sighed. "You're that boy, aren't you? The one from that raid on the laboratory 6 years ago." Ben paled. How did Endeavor know that? "I was part of the raid team that day. All of the top 10 pro heroes were. It was also the one where All Might fought that villain ... the one that nearly killed him." Ben hung his head down, his fist shaking. Bad memories were resurfacing and he did not want to be reminded of them. As he prepared to leave, Endeavor put a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry for dredging up the past, but I need you to do something for me." "And what do you want me to do?" "Throw the match." "No, even I know that's the height of irresponsibility ... but I want you to either win or force Shoto to use both sides of himself." Ben and Endeavor looked at each other for the longest time before the former gently moved the hand off him and made his way to the arena. "Trust me on this, Endeavor. I plan on doing both." "All right, it's time for the second bracket to begin. First, we have the guy who literally won by a landslide, leaving half the audience frozen. Give it up for Shoto Todoroki," Present Mike announced. The crowd cheered as Shoto entered the arena, a stone-cold look on his face. And next we have the guy with a power far beyond any known quirk, the modern-day Avatar. Let's hear it for Benio Torkiroshi. Shoto glared at Ben, who stepped onto the arena and met the glare with his own. "You look like you have something to say. Spit it out." Ben just grunted. "Just remember that unless you use both sides of yourself, you'll just waste everyone's time." This only made Shoto angrier. "I already told you I'll never use my bastard father's fire. Just my mother's ice." "Your funeral." Shoto quickly launched an ice flurry, but Ben's entire body suddenly ignited with pure fire and heat, the ice melting before it even touched him as he made his way towards Shoto. "Predictable. What intense power." "Torkiroshi is bringing the heat," Present Mike cried. Shoto snarled as he sent another wave of ice toward Ben, who could only sigh as the flames extinguished. As the ice approached, it started to bend and curve around him, shattering into ice particles, and then reforming into a giant ice gauntlet around Ben's left arm. "I don't just produce the elements, I can also control existing sources." With a massive shockwave punch from the ice gauntlet, Ben shattered it and sent the shards flying at Shoto, who quickly put his guard up. "Damn it, he's too strong. Well, I really need to close the distance in order to win. But even then he'll have the advantage due to his greater strength." Ben just sighed in annoyance as he looked at Shoto, who shot another wave of ice, only for Ben to hold his hand out and cause the ice to explode violently in a flash of light, leaving no trace behind. What the heck was that? Present Mike gawked. The element of entropy, basically destruction incarnate, Ben explained calmly. Man, this is crazy, Denki said. Todoroshi's just batting away everything Todoroki throws at him. It's like throwing stones at a brick wall, Kaiuka noted. He literally can counter everything Shoto throws at him. Yeah, I can see that, Izuku said. Todoroki barely looks winded, but Todoroki's just getting more frustrated. He was probably hoping for a quick resolution, but Todoroshi's not even giving him the option. Shoto, meanwhile, was gritting his teeth as Ben had just destroyed another wave of ice. Deciding to take a gamble, he set up a barricade of ice behind himself before sprinting forward, riding on a wave of ice toward Ben. And now Todoroki is on the move. What's his move? Present Mike asked. A desperate one. Considering the amount of ice he's throwing it, he's nearing his limit. This will be his last attack, Aizawa noted. Shoto soon got close to Izuku and fired another torrent of ice, encasing Ben in a tower of pure ice. As the audience gasped, Shoto fell to one knee, breathing heavily as ice covered most of his right side, clearly suffering from frostbite as he struggled to stand back up and walk away from the arena. Crack. No, Shoto just stared in horror as the pillar cracked and shattered. Ben standing there and staring down at him, pure cold energy radiating off of him as the ice shards gathered around him and formed a menacing armor around him. My turn. Shoto could barely react as Ben kicked him in the gut, sending him flying away and crashing into the ice barricade, continuing to tumble before stopping right before leaving the ring. Damn, young Todoroshi's really not pulling his punches. He really wants to face your boy's fire, Tashinori muttered. I'm kinda scared he might kill the brat now, Tsunade added worriedly. Shoto meanwhile was struggling to get up as he couldn't stop shaking from the cold and pain. He growled. There was no way he could rely on his mother's ice anymore. Look at that. Shoto Todoroki gets back up, but he's not looking good. He can hardly stand and can't stop shaking. What can he possibly do? Present Mike shouted. Use his damn fire, Aizawa said sternly. It's the only logical possibility he has left. Any more use of his ice could lead to permanent injury. Ben just glared at Shoto. So are we just about done here, or are you going to man up and use your fire? That was the last straw for Shoto. I'm never using that bastard's fire. And there it is. Shoto paused, his face still twisted in rage but now confusion as well. That right there. That is why I despise you. Do you know what our classmates all have in common? Ida might be stiff, Kirishima may be thick-headed, and Bakugo may have a short temper ... but they're still out there fighting. Not just to prove themselves, but to all the people they've sworn to protect. See, even Minta is doing his best. I don't know if I should be flattered or insulted, the dwarfish boy noted after hearing that. But none of them, Shoto, not a one, shares that trait with you. So vile, it drives me to retch. Ben spat in disgust. You, Shoto Todoroki ... are a coward. Shoto screamed in fury as he ran toward Ben and threw a punch at him, but it was easily caught as Ben squeezed tight enough to make the bones crack but not break, forcing Shoto to his knees. It's about time you gave up. I'm not giving up this match, Shoto shouted, struggling through the pain as Ben just sighed. I'm not talking about this match. Then what the hell are you talking about? Ben looked him dead in the eye. This ridiculous idea that you can be a hero. Dead silence. The whole world was shocked into silence, though one or two people ended up going ooh. In response, what did you just say? Shoto stuttered, shocked at what he had just been told. Did I fucking stutter? Ben asked. I said you can't be a hero. But then again, no one is selfish or half-assed as you could ever be one. Selfish? Half-assed? What the hell are you talking about? Shoto roared. This is about using my father's fire again, isn't it? Did he pay you off? Ben rolled his eyes and slammed his fist hard into Shoto's stomach, making him vomit up saliva and blood as he hunched over before having his face slammed into his knee, breaking his nose and splattering blood all over his face. And that's your problem. Your refusal to use your fire is what's holding you back from ever being a hero. What would happen if lives were in danger and you failed to save them because you refused to use your flames? Do you think that's going to cut it with their families? Ben asked before making a fake whiny voice. Sorry, I couldn't save your friends and loved ones, but my fucking daddy issues are more important. Ben then lifted Shoto up and headbutted him hard, sending him reeling back before punching him several more times for good measure. Well, he's not wrong, Fumikage said, gaining shocked looks from some of his classmates. If he continues on like this, one day he could be a hindrance and liability in the field, and we won't have the time or luxury to deal with him. I agree ... but I don't exactly have to like it. Kirby frowned. Yeah, me neither, Izuku said in agreement. You want to know something, Todoroki? If you keep going down this path you're on ... well, it's best if I show you myself. Ben then grabbed Shoto's face and hourglasses appeared in his eyes. Shoto soon found himself in some kind of hospital room, looking around in confusion at the monochrome colors. Suddenly, he saw something that horrified him. His mother hanging by a noose as her body swung aimlessly back and forth. What is this? What are you showing me? Ben appeared in the form of a misty red apparition with glaring black eyes. This is the future Shoto. The future if you keep continuing on the path you're on. If you keep rejecting your father's fire, you know what's gonna happen. Aizawa-sensei is gonna expel you. He refuses to have someone endanger others because he's half-assing everything. Ben then showed Shoto a newspaper article that showed an older and more somber Endeavor holding a dead body, his head bowed in sorrow and grief. Shoto was confused before reading the title of the article. Flame Hero Endeavor forced to kill his youngest son. Ice Villain, Shoto Todoroki. You turned to vigilantism after Aizawa expelled you, but you were a pretty lousy one. Ben explained. You killed at least 550 people due to your reckless large-scale attacks, crippled at least 12 people, left 15,000 people homeless, caused 20,000 people to become jobless, and did damages that reached billions of yens. You're lying. You're just trying to make my father look good. I'm not, and you want to know what else. All the deaths you caused turned everyone against you. But you couldn't understand that because you were simply rejecting your evil father. Ben continued. But this overwhelmed Endeavor with guilt. He tried several times to get you to stop. But you refused to listen, and you know what you did. You killed your own older sister. Shoto paled. Fayumi, dead by his hands. He couldn't believe it. That's what officially made you a villain in the eyes of everyone. Endeavor did everything he could to get you to see reason, but you were too far gone to be reached. So he was forced to kill you before you could risk killing anyone else. Ben finished. Her actions stained the name of ICE users so much that people began seeing them as villainous quirks. Your mother killed herself because she couldn't handle the shame of birthing someone who would kill so many people just to prove a point, and had so little compassion for his victims. Shoto flopped to the ground. He caused all this pain and misery. What are so shocked about, big guy? Shoto looked at Ben before crawling away in fear. Ben was pretty sure that he traumatized him for the rest of his life. Yes, you caused all this because you used your ice just to prove a point that no one cares about. Shoto stood up shivering. Then, I'll just be more careful. Kyle. He was stopped by a punch to the face from Ben, who looked beyond pissed off. Stop thinking about Endeavor for 1 minute of your little worthless pathetic life. He then smashed Shoto's face against his knee. After the dark future you saw, this is what you're thinking about. How to make your life even more ingrained and influenced by your father. You say you want to be free of him, but everything you do revolves around him. Ben grabbed Shoto by the mouth, preventing him from talking as the future vision shattered, bringing them back to the present. You need to stop thinking about your father. Tell me, you think by not using your fire, you're building your own person independent of who he is? Ben laughed. But newsflash, you're dedicating your entire life to pissing him off. Shoto's eyes widened, but Ben was not done with him yet as he yelled for the whole stadium to hear. But tell me something, Todoroki, don't you want to become your own hero, free of everything? Isn't that what you want? He then let Shoto go, who realized that the wounds he sustained were all healed. If that's the case, stop playing around and give me your 100%. Shoto at this very moment was shocked as flames covered his left side. He remembered all the ugly times he faced with his father, but then remembered the only good memory he had with his mother. That's why you can be the kind of hero you want to be growing up. He remembered that which caused his mother to snap in the first place before Endeavor realized he had gone too far. He never allowed Shoto the chance for friends, believing his son to be destined for a far greater position in life. Rei had called her mom on the night of the incident, voicing concerns that her children were starting to become like Endeavor. She had been unable to look at Shoto without seeing Enji, and she felt like she couldn't raise her children anymore. When Shoto asked what Rei was even saying, that's what caused her to snap. Shoto had always blamed his father and still did. But now Ben's words had hit him harder than any punch he threw. Endeavor isn't your opponent, so plant your feet, grit your teeth, and eat that. HOOORSE. Ben screamed as his entire body exploded with flames itself. Shoto and Ben lunged at each other, two mighty infernos blazing brightly. The two fireballs crashed together, creating a massive explosion that Tatsumaki and Fubuki quickly erected a psychic energy barrier to contain with their quirks, which were both SHOTOOO. Endeavor shouted, "This is what I wanted from you. To accept both sides of yourself. Become the hero you desire with the powers you have. The power that is yours and yours alone." Heh, about damn time. Garp chuckled, sharing Endeavor's enthusiasm. When the dust settled, everyone leaned in, anxiously wondering who was the victor of the final flaming clash. Penny clasped her hands in concern while the rest of Class 1 were on the edge of their seats. Soon, Ben and Shoto could be seen, and Shoto was unconscious, a few burns and stray melted frost marks on his body, and Ben was covered in several different burns. Heh, there you go, Ben said, patting Shoto on the back as he gently laid him down. His wounds healing very slowly, only for him to cough up blood from his mouth as his eyes glazed and rolled into the back of his head. What the fuck? Ben suddenly collapsed on top of Shoto, his body in a more prone state. Midnight let out a scream of concern and ran over to check on both boys. Shoto, despite the small burns and frostbite marks that had been cauterized, was relatively fine, but Ben looked like he was in the middle of a seizure. "This battle is a draw," Cementos cried, taking over for Midnight. "Both boys are out of the fight. Baby, stay with me," Midnight said, holding her adoptive son close as Shoto weakly opened his eyes, dazed as he was helped up by the medic bots. "Ben," Penny whispered, covering her mouth with tears building up in her eyes. "Man, I didn't know Todoroki's powers came with such a huge drawback," Denki worriedly said. All of Class 1 left uncertain of what was going to happen next. "Man, that was intense." Tamura laughed. "As much as I hate heroes, I gotta admit, they're pretty damn cool." "That boy," Drown muttered as she turned to her brothers. "It's him, isn't it? Project Dragoon." "Indeed," Devastator growled. "The one person who managed to avoid having his body and mind degrade from all the quirks our brother infused into him. Father and the rest of us also aided in the project. Oh, he was a wonderful toy." Batman Who Laughs cackled. "But then he had to grow a conscience, didn't he? And then All Might showed up and all that stuff happened." Dawnbreaker sighed. "Well, it can't be helped. He's with the heroes now. The only thing we can do now is find a proper rival for him. Much like how Tamura is shaping up to be rivals with that Midoriya kid." "Affirmative," Murder Machine concurred. "And a certain project that me and Dr. Garaki are working on will be just the right tool we need to combat his powers. This ought to be fun." Tamura chuckled as he continued to watch the sports festival, already excited for what was coming next. Shoto lay in the hospital bed provided for him in the infirmary. He was surprised that after the sound beating Ben gave him, he was honestly not all that badly injured. Then again, he did feel a healing sensation run through him when Ben was close to him, almost as if he didn't want to permanently cripple him. Speaking of Ben, he had been stabilized after his power seizure when the match concluded. Currently, he was hooked up to a breathing machine and was asleep, his vitals having been steady. "You did well out there, my boy." Shoto turned to see Garp entering the infirmary, a proud look on his face. "Garp the Fist, what are you doing here? Can't an old man see the son of his old pupil and relay a message on how proud he is?" The old hero chuckled. "Hopefully that kick in the pants was what you needed to see your power as your own." Todoroki didn't pull any punches. Shoto sighed, recalling the harrowing dark future Ben showed him, still fresh in his mind. "I had no idea his powers were that potent." Garp looked sadly at Ben's unconscious body. "You may think he's some ruthless, pragmatic being, but that boy is still learning how to be human. He wasn't exactly born the conventional way, after all." "Is Ben going to be okay?" Achako asked worriedly. "And for that matter, what about Todoroki?" "Todoroki is fine for the most part, but from what I'm hearing, Ben is gonna have to be forced out of the tournament." Izuku frowned, meaning the fight he'd be in the next round will have to be skipped. Penny looked greatly upset. Hilda and Kirby doing their best to console her. It was no secret that she and Ben were close to each other, and him nearly dying from overusing his powers was not helping matters. Still, Ben was super manly out there. He managed to help snap Todoroki out of his funk. Ijiru pointed out. "Yeah, even he was a little brutal about it." Denki muttered. A few of the words he said were kinda uncalled for, to be honest. Once the arena was repaired following the intense battle between Ben and Shoto, the matches continued with Hilda and Kirby being the next battle. "Alright, our boyfriends had a good fight. Let's see if we can follow their example," Hilda said, stomping her feet like a professional sumo wrestler as Kirby grinned and took out a spider-themed cookie and ate it, transforming into Spider Kirby, tipping her decorative top hat with a smile. "May I have this dance?" "You may indeed, my friend." Hilda launched herself forward like a cannonball as Kirby fired webs from her palms that formed a trampoline that she bounced off of into the air. She then fired web bullets at Hilda to stick her to the ground, but the plump brawler quickly rolled out of the way and then lashed out, which Kirby countered with a tall web needle. Hilda spun around and then delivered a sumo palm thrust, sending a massive air bullet at Kirby, who fired a large spray of webbing that covered the bullet in a web pie. But she then kicked at Hilda, who quickly jumped out of the way but was sent flying by the residual shockwave. "Not bad." Hilda grinned as she rolled onto her back to see Kirby diving down, firing multiple web bullets at her. However, the energy of OFA charged through Hilda, pink lightning surrounding her as she sucked in her stomach before suddenly catapulting herself straight up toward Kirby, who was shocked by the sudden approach as Hilda slammed into her with her whole massive frame before spinning around and crushing her into the floor with a powerful belly flop. "Hope that wasn't too hard a landing. I do have plenty of extra padding, after all." Hilda giggled as she got off Kirby, who had turned back to normal and had swirls in her eyes as well as a bright red blush on her face. "So soft ... like pudding and sponge cake." Hilda giggled and picked up the pink-haired girl in her arms before walking out of the arena. "Kirby Sakurai has been knocked out. The winner is Hilda Yasakani," Midnight announced. The next fight was against Mifa and Nia. Nia was quite fast and was able to play a good game of keep away as Mipha sent various water attacks at her. However, when Nia thought she found an opening and was about to take Mipha down with a pounce attack, she was hit by a surprise geyser of high-pressure water, sending her rocketing out of the arena. Sorry, you probably should have paid attention to what I was setting up. Mipha giggled with an apologetic look on her face, having set up geyser traps around the arena while trying to hit me. Bloody hell, Nia grumbled as she picked herself up off the ground. I hate getting wet. Nia Hankoma is out of bounds. Mipha Hashimoto is the winner, Midnight announced. Shoto was discharged from the infirmary and made his way back to the Class 1 stands to see the rest of the matches. The look on his face showed he was still contemplating things. Oh, Todoroki, glad to see you're okay. Penny smiled. Is Ben alright? He's stabilized for right now. Recovery girl told me that it'll be another hour before he wakes up. Shoto explained. So, who's up next? Rebecca-chan and Fio-chan. Izuku said. Fio managed to construct several different gadgets to combat Rebecca's vast arsenal of weapons. A shield blocked a torrent of flames from an arm turned into a high-pressure flamethrower. An electric gauntlet clashed with ripper blades protruding from Rebecca's fist, and a grappling hook launcher allowed Fio to reel herself in to try and pin Rebecca down under her bulk. Nice try, fat ass. But there's still some tricks up my sleeve. Heat lines suddenly appeared around Rebecca's cybernetics and she unleashed a powerful heat blast that not only pushed Fio back but sent her out of bounds and landed on her big butt, making her fall on her back and groan. Guess you couldn't handle my heat wave? Huh, yeah, gonna need to think about building a cooling unit for that. Fio laughed as she got up. Fio Jeremy is out of bounds. Rebecca Santiago wins, Midnight announced. The next match was between Tenya and Ibarra. While Ibarra's vines were very versatile and far-reaching, Tenya had her beat when it came to speed. There were a few close calls here and there, but Tenya eventually got behind Ibarra and picked her up before carefully pushing her out of bounds. Gotta hand it to Ida. He knows how to handle a lady. Hilda chuckled. Winner by ring out, Tenya Ida, Midnight announced. The next fight was against Fumikage and Mina. Fumikage and Dark Shadow had a clear advantage since even with the amount of light out, Dark Shadow could easily evade Mina's acidic ammo. She soon found herself getting pushed out of the ring. The winner is Fumikage Tokoyami, Midnight announced. As Penny was preparing for her match against Ijiru, she went to the infirmary to check on Ben, who looked mostly okay for the most part. Don't worry, just a few more minutes and he'll be okay. Shizune smiled. That boy's powers are strong, but overusing them does more damage to his body than one might think. Recovery girl sighed. Honestly, he pushed himself so much just to hammer it into Todoroki how stupid his pledge was. Still, I like to say he went too far in that regard. Penny walked over to Ben's unconscious body and gently kissed him on the forehead, smiling as she left for her match, but not before turning around to say one last thing. Thank you for being my first friend, Ben. I promise I'll win this for you. Meanwhile, in the waiting rooms, Tenya made a call on his phone. Tensei, are you there? It's me, Tenya. I am currently on a mission and cannot answer the phone. Tenya sighed. It was his brother's voicemail. Putting away the phone, he went to head back to the stands when he noticed someone standing there. It was a young man, just loitering around. Excuse me, but it is highly unprofessional to be loitering around here. The bespectacled young man called out as the other boy looked up at him. The man was not handsome, but nor was he unattractive. His hair was short and gray, and his red eyes had black eyeliner and black lipstick. He was heavily tattooed with a number of Gothic-styled rings and bracelets, including at least 3 lip piercings on the lower lip and 4 earrings on each ear. He was dressed in an Ice 9 Kills t-shirt under a thin gray hoodie, black khakis, and red slip-on shoes. He stared at Tenya for what felt like the longest time before giving off a grin that showed many misshapen and crooked teeth. Tenya felt greatly uncomfortable as he walked off, leaving the man alone. As he left, the man chuckled, his teeth snapping and crunching before turning into normal, straight clean teeth. Licking his lips, the man slinked off, his hands in his pockets. In the streets of Hasu, Tensei Ada Aka the Turbo Hero, Ingenium was running through the back alleys before finding a shadowy figure holding a female pro-hero by the throat, a sword poised to stab her through the heart. There you are, hero killer. The shadowy figure dropped the pro, turning to Tensei with a cold, icy glare. Tensei suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure coming off the figure but steeled his nerves as best he could and rushed forward to face his foe. Meanwhile, the sport festival was starting to heat up with the match between Ijiru and Penny. Penny switched to configuration, explosion, firing explosive blasts from holes that opened up in her palms as Ijiru hardened himself to tank them. Come on, Penny. I know you have a configuration for my hardening quirk in you. Yes, but I would like not to have a repeat of your match with Tetsu. Fair point. Ijiru then rushed forward. Guess I'll just have to push you out of the ring. Kirishima's got Penny on the defensive there, Izuku noted from the stands as Tenya showed up. Good, I didn't miss the fight. Oh, hey Ida. Kirby smiled. Why'd you head off to the waiting rooms? It's gonna be a while until your next fight. I was hoping my brother Tensei might be watching from the stands, Tenya admitted, but I didn't see him after my last match. I tried calling him, but it seems he's on a mission in the city. Still, this might be for the best. When we do talk, I can tell him about my success so far. I'm sure your bro is watching on livestream or something, Zero said. Maybe he's on break and cheering you on right now. I do hope so, Tenya sighed. But there was this peculiar young man loitering around the waiting room. He seemed like a normal civilian who just got lost, but I couldn't help but get an uneasy feeling about him. Well, there's a lot of creepy guys who aren't all that bad once you get to know them, Mina pointed out. Maybe he was just hanging around coincidentally. Somehow I doubt it, Ashido. Back down below, Penny had found her opening. Izuku had been overextending with his quirk in order to keep on the offensive, which is what Penny was counting on. Configuration, dupli arms. Multiple techno-organic arms protruded from Penny's sides and pummeled Izuku from all sides. Soon, the redhead boy was down and out, and the winner by knockout, Penny Polendina, Midnight announced. And now we have our quarterfinals set, Present Mike said. However, with Benio Torkuroshi out of commission, whoever ends up facing him will get a free pass, considering what he did to Todoroki. This might be a good thing. The Jumbotron spun once more, setting up the randomized matches for the quarterfinals. Izuku Midoriya vs Mifa Hashimoto. Hilda Yasakani vs Tenya Ida. Penny Polendina vs Rebecca Santiago. Benio Torkuroshi vs Fumikage Tokoyami. Oh, I wanted to see what he could do. Dark Shadow complained in disappointment. It cannot be helped, Dark Shadow, Fumikage said. You saw the grievous state Torkuroshi was in. We will just have to see who will become our opponent in the semifinals. Izuku and Mifa's match was up first. As the two old friends stepped onto the arena, both of them were thinking of the day they first met. Flashback. Young 7-year-old Izuku breathed heavily after another rigorous training session with Rayleigh. The old hero had taken him to a special place at the beach where a miraculous kingdom lived in secret, inhabited by humanoid fish people named Zora. Like humans, they could also use quirks, but the quirks they had were usually more sea-based. The boy's strength is already impressive. The Zora King, Dorfin Hashimoto, noted as Rayleigh chuckled. The brat's potential grows each and every day. The Dark King said, and how's that lovely daughter of yours? Mifa has a fascination with the outside world, Dorfin said. I feel like once she is old enough, she can venture out. She desires to be a hero, just like your young ward. As Izuku picked himself up off the ground, he noticed a red scaly soft hand being offered to him and saw a beautiful girl in front of him. A blush decorated his freckled cheeks. Are you an angel? The girl giggled. No, but thank you. I'm Mifa. I couldn't help but admire how determined you were, even against such overwhelming odds. Well, I want to be a super strong hero like All Might so I can protect everyone, Izuku proudly said, putting his fists to his hips. What about you? Do you want to be a hero too? I do. I've always wanted to explore the world outside my kingdom and help as many people as I can. Mifa smiled. But I need to grow stronger first, as the future ruler of my people and as a hero to be. Izuku beamed as a friendship was formed at that very moment, the two of them holding hands. In fact, Izuku seemed to feel his fatigue fade away as he and Mifa touched. Rayleigh-sensei, I'm ready for another round. In flashback, the two were snapped out of their nostalgic musings when Midnight called the match to begin. Mifa quickly swam forward, surrounded by a small wave of water as Izuku quickly used it to separate himself into light particles, each one forming a hard light clone. Light clones. Mifa quickly gracefully flipped into the air before landing down, slamming her palms on the ground as she created multiple geysers of water that pierced through the light clones, dissipating them, only for the real Izuku to lunge forward and send out a soap cloud in the shape of a sheep with sheep cloud relaxing bubbles. Mifa smiled before slamming her palm against the ground, creating a giant dome of water that sucked in the bubbles and dissipated them. Izuku couldn't help but nod in approval of a clever tactic before phasing through the arena floor. Mifa was confused at first before realizing what Izuku was doing as half of the arena rose up, taking his shape. The power of the present Mike cried. Truly an admirable ability. You better repair the arena when you're done, Midoriya. Cementos called out as Izuku smiled playfully. Sorry, Cementos-sensei. Izuku then turned to Mifa and sent out tentacles of stone toward her. Pulpostone. Mifa gracefully swam across the tentacles before forming a trident made of water and thrusting it into the stone Izuku construct, breaking it apart and exposing part of Izuku's real body as he gasped, only to grin when he held his hands out, causing Mifa to realize what was happening. White out, firing clouds of smoke from his hands with Izuku increased the density to trap Mifa inside and push her out of bounds. The Zora princess tumbled to the ground and breathed heavily, beaten but also happy that Izuku proved his strength. You really are amazing, Izuku ... just like I always knew. Izuku smiled as he walked over to Mifa and helped her up. the two of them taking a moment to gaze into each other's eyes. Shouldn't you be jealous, Hilda? Minoru asked the big beautiful girl in question, who casually ate a hot dog before smiling. What? Mepha's cute. I don't mind sharing. Damn it, Midoriya, you lucky bastard. And now for the second match of the quarter-finals. It's speed against strength as Tenya, son of the esteemed Ingenium family, faces off against Hilda Yasakani, the big beautiful brawler. Present Mike called out. We may be friends, Yasakani, but that's no reason to hold back, Tenya said. Wasn't planning on it, Ada, Hilda said, taking a sumo stance. But you're gonna have to find a way to move me first. And start. Tenya seemed to vanish into thin air before reappearing in front of Hilda, delivering a spinning kick that she blocked with her hammy arm, a shockwave exploding outward. Damn, just going for the head. Shame on you. Tenya rolled his eyes. I don't intend to just wail on you while you stand there and take it. Show me everything you have. All right, you asked for it. Now both of them vanished, only to reappear in the air to strike with a flying kick meeting a mighty punch, another shockwave bursting out from the collision. RECIPRO burst. HOENN smash. Kind of a dumb idea, don't you think? Hilda pointed out. Once you use that move, you have 10 seconds before your engine stalls. Seems Midoriya isn't the only one with an analytical mind, Tenya noted before being decked in the chin by Hilda's fist, which she then pulled back for another blow. KANTO smash. With a powerful strike, Hilda had Tenya knocked down on the ground, long enough for his engines to stall. Tenya quickly realized he wasn't winning this fight, not with his quirk unable to properly fire. I yield, and Ada surrenders, Midnight announced. The winner is Hilda Yasakani. Meanwhile, Ingenium was having troubles of his own, having just been taken out by the hero killer he was hunting, now lying in a pool of his own blood. Fame, money, that's what all of you so-called heroes are really after. He stomped on Ingenium's phone. You bastards are not heroes at all. But there is one exception. Blood dripped from his blade as Tensei struggled to remain conscious. The female pro-hero he had tried to rescue was lying dead beside him, her eyes wide open and tears pouring down them as her throat was slashed. He's the only one with permission to kill me. Only All Might is worthy. Well, guess it's time for our match. Rebecca smirked as she stepped in along with Penny, who kept a friendly smile on her face. Indeed, friend Rebecca. How is your brother doing, by the way? Killer, he's still doing shady deals here and there, but we still run with our Edrunner crowd. Rebecca shrugged. Now, are you ready to do this? Penny smiled as she activated Configuration, Zero Gravity, creating special pads on her palms that could fire anti-gravity beams. Seeing this, Rebecca activated her gravity spikes, forming a pair of high-tech spikes from her arms that she gripped in her hands. Oh, it's on now. The two charged at each other, Penny using her jet boots and Rebecca boosting herself into the air with her jetpack. The two let out a battle cry as they crashed into each other, creating a massive gravitational discharge that forced everyone back in their seats. WHOOA. Ijiru cried. That's some manly firepower right there. When the dust settled, Rebecca had been knocked out of bounds, but she still left a mark on Penny, much to the audience's shock when they saw parts of her gym uniform torn up and her skin damaged, revealing sparking metallic parts. Oh no, I didn't want people to learn like this, the android weakly said before falling on her face. Oh crap, that's my bad, Rebecca groaned, realizing that she had just revealed a very high trade secret. Wait, Zero gawked. Penny is a robot. Lot of secrets being let out today, Kirby noted to Hilda, who nodded nervously in agreement. Rebecca Santiago has been knocked out of bounds. The winner is Penny Polandina, Midnight urgently said as she got a blanket to cover Penny with. Come on, sweetie, let's get you fixed up. Izuku frowned as he watched Midnight take Penny to the infirmary. Suddenly, many things about the quirky girl made sense to him, as did her connection with Ben. He knew it wasn't his place to pry, but he'd need to ask them both about it later when they got better. Suddenly, Tenya began shaking, freaking out his classmates. Don't worry, it's just my phone. What kind of phone even is that? Denki asked. Tenya ignored the comment and answered, surprised when the number he was getting was his mom. He headed out to take the call. Hey, Mom, sorry to tell you, but I was stopped at the quarterfinals. That's not why I'm calling. His mom clarified, sounding close to tears. It's about your brother. A villain got Tensei. Tenya's eyes widened in shock. What? Is he all right? He's still alive, thankfully. They called Sister Sage to tend to him, Mrs. Ada assured him. But he's been rushed to Hasu General Hospital. I'll be right there, Tenya said, hanging up and praying to every god imaginable that his dear brother was okay. The hero killer, Stain, looked down on the scene as Ingenium was taken away on a stretcher while the dead female pro-hero was dragged away in a body bag. This world is filled with hypocrisy. I will open its eyes, and those of its heroes. He sensed something behind him and stabbed, only for his blade to find itself caught by the ironclad fist of the merciless. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, hero killer. I believe we can be of mutual aid to each other. All right, this is our chance, Fumi. Dark Shadow cheered as Fumikage nodded. A pity we could not face Ben's mighty elemental force, but Midoriya is an even grander challenge. I hope Penny's okay. Hilda frowned, remembering what happened in Penny's match with Rebecca. Gotta say, whoever built you did one hell of a job, Theo said as she had been called in to help repair Penny's damage with her quirk. Lucky you had someone like me around to help. Huh. Penny smiled. I am most grateful for your help, friend Theo. I just hope my battle against friend Hilda is a satisfactory one. Just don't go overboard like with Rebecca. Recovery girl chided. Lord knows you shouldn't have to give Theo headaches like the rest of the students do with me. I will try my very best. Ms. Recovery girl. Penny beamed with a salute. Penny. Everyone turned to see Ben slowly stirring in his bed. Penny gasped as she ran over and held her friend's hand in hers. Ben, you're all right. I'm so relieved. Ben weakly looked at Penny with a sad smile. Sorry, I went too far, didn't I? Save your strength. You'll be good to go soon enough. Shizune said. You know, you gave everyone quite a scare. Yeah, that's the problem with this power, it eats me from the inside the more I use it. Ben said. A serious drawback if I've ever seen. Recovery girl said. Pushing your powers past what you can handle causes intense cellular decay. Fortunately, there seems to be an enzyme in you that regenerates the damage, provided you give it time to do its work. Guess that's one of the only good things they put in me, Ben said bitterly, bad memories flashing in his mind before feeling Penny squeeze his hand reassuringly. Don't say that about yourself. There are so many wonderful things about you. Theo and Shizune both couldn't help but coo, clearly seeing how much the two meant to each other as Recovery girl chuckled. Ah, Pietro, your daughter is one chip off the old block. Here we are, people. The first match of the semi-finals. Who will come out on top? The Devil of Righteousness Izuku Midoriya or the Black Raven Samurai Fumikage Tokoyami? Present Mike called out. I wonder what the match between Deku and Tokoyami will be like, Ochako noted. We'll just have to wait and see. Hilda said. Oi round face, why are you calling him Deku? Katsuki asked. Only I get to call the damn nerd that. Well, you say it in a mean way. I'm saying it in a nice way because it sounds like Dekaru, meaning you can do it. Hilda giggled and pulled Ochako into a one-armed hug. You're too good for this world, Machai. Izuku and Fumikage had stepped onto the arena, their gazes firmly on each other before Midnight made the announcement to begin the battle. Begin. Fumikage immediately summoned Dark Shadow. However, instead of going straight at Izuku, Dark Shadow surprised everyone by diving down into Fumikage's shadow. Izuku prepared to dodge, but Dark Shadow suddenly appeared out of Izuku's shadow and nailed him with an uppercut, causing him to take a few steps back. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Mina winced. Who knew Tokoyami could do that? Don't look at me, Minoru said. Izuku smiled and wiped his chin before deciding to fight fire with fire. DOPPLMAN. Using the, Izuku animated his shadow as it rose up and stood beside him. Fumikage smirked as he and Dark Shadow prepared themselves, the bird-headed boy coating his fists in the familiar black coating of armament haki. A 2-on-2 battle. Revelry in the dark. Izuku and Fumikage charged at each other, slugging it out as Dark Shadow and the Doppelman wrestled with each other. Fumikage showed himself to be quite adept in Rokushiki as well, as Izuku had to dodge when he used Shigen. Black Lotus. Izuku used Kami-E to fluidly dodge the finger strikes. Eventually, he managed to overpower Fumikage and pin him down, the Doppelman grabbing Dark Shadow in a headlock and preventing him from moving to help. Yield, man. You know you can't escape my grasp. Fumikage struggled valiantly before eventually giving up, tapping out as Midnight raised her whip. Fumikage Tokoyami has submitted. Our first finalist is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku helped Fumikage to his feet afterward, the Doppelman turning back into Izuku's shadow while Dark Shadow pouted in annoyance. You got lucky. Me and Fumi could have beaten ya. Izuku chuckled. You definitely caught me off guard a few times, that's for sure. Indeed, I trained myself in the ways of Haki and Rokushiki based on videos I saw of the leopard skin hero, Rob Lucci. Fumikage said, my skills became so potent, Dark Shadow himself can use Haki as well. That's so cool. Izuku smiled, his quirk nerd side showing. You gotta tell me more about you and Dark Shadow sometime. Be prepared, Midoriya. Our tale is quite a dark and foreboding one. Fumikage chuckled. But considering your strength of will, you can handle it. Hilda and Penny made their way onto the arena next. The two girls smiled at each other as Present Mike made his announcement. So, wanna show me what you got, Mega Girl? Penny giggled. That's a new one. But yes, I am prepared to show what I can do. As soon as the match began, the two rushed at each other. Penny's back opened up and Hilda's eyes widened when swords connected to strings came out and dashed toward her. Quickly using, Hilda concealed her movements as Penny stopped, her eyes scanning the smoke for her opponent's whereabouts. Surprise! Hilda suddenly grabbed Penny from behind and squeezed tightly, pressing her against her big plump frame. However, Penny smiled as engines similar to Tenya's protruded from her wrists and ankles. Configuration, engine. Penny rocketed into the air, dragging Hilda along with her. Her swords then spun around in a circle in front of her, charging up a ball of green energy before firing it as a powerful laser beam. Hilda quickly crossed her arms and her entire body became coated in armament haki, turning her into a black boulder that was sent rocketing down to the ground. I hope that wasn't too much, friend Hilda, Penny said as she landed back down on her feet. However, Hilda amazed her by rising to her feet and wiping some blood off her lip before taking a sumo stance. Too much, it wasn't even enough. Penny smiled and switched to black-green crystals covering her body as she rushed forward and began pummeling Hilda's stomach. However, she simply stood there and smirked, letting the blows bounce off her belly. Standing here, I realize. Present Mike began singing before Aizawa cut the feed to the announcer's booth in annoyance. Realizing she was getting nowhere, Penny jumped back and switched to forming speakers on her shoulders before firing reverberating sound waves at Hilda, who was actually pushed back this time before dug her feet into the ground and began stomping forward through the overwhelming pressure. Sensational. Penny smiled, amazed at Hilda's determination before the chunky girl grinned, pink and white lightning dancing around her as she harnessed OFA before rocketing forward, shocking Penny as she was sent flying out of bounds by a powerful belly bash, tumbling across the grass and laying flat on her back. Penny Polandina is out of bounds. Hilda Yasakani is our second finalist. You okay, Penny? Hilda asked as she came over, the android girl getting up no worse for wear. I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. Penny beamed before heading off. I need to go and see Ben now. I wish you luck against friend Izuku in the finals. Hilda smiled as Penny left for the infirmary. That girl is something else, all right. After a 10-minute recess, Izuku and Hilda went to their individual waiting rooms, doing some final warm-ups before the final match. Hilda took out a 1-liter bottle of soda and chugged the whole thing down before letting out an unashamed belch, patting her belly in satisfaction. All right, let's do this. Izuku fixed his straw hat on his head, keeping it firmly in place as it shaded his eyes, giving them a competitive look ready to take on the world. Out in the stands, everyone was eager to see who would make it to the top as Aizawa took a look at the student dossier. Looking purely at the stats, Midoriya has a clear advantage with his vast arsenal of powers from his devil fruit, but he and Yasakani know each other better than just some info on a piece of paper. But no matter who wins, they've got the world's attention. Neither of them are gonna give an inch, are they? Present Mike noted, Aizawa simply nodding in agreement. Izuku and Hilda soon entered the ring, the crowd roaring in excitement. And we have our final fighters for this tournament. Present Mike called out. First off is the lean, green machine, the supreme powerhouse, the noble demon, Izuku Midoriya. The crowd cheered as Midoriya waved with a smile on his face. And his opponent, the big beautiful angel, the fat and proud supermodel, Yokozuna hero. It's Hilda Yasakani. Yokozuna, huh, I like that. Hilda chuckled. These two have dominated the sports festival all day, but only one is going to walk out of here a champion. Let the final match begin. With a war cry, both friends charged at each other, fists aimed high. They punched at each other over and over. What's that? I thought Izuku would use his devil fruits or something. Denki called out. The two of them have too much respect to just cheese it with their powers from the start, Ben said as he sat down, Penny holding his hand. I see you're doing all right now, Shoto noted. I need to still rest a bit for the rest of the day. Need my body to recharge itself. Oh yeah, you hit hard, sweetums. Hilda laughed as Izuku's punches bounced off her belly while he simply shrugged off her own blows. So do you, Hilda. But come on, punches and kicks won't satisfy. Let's spice things up. Hilda then pulled back her fist for a right straight, Izuku covering his arms in armament haki and crossing them over himself for the incoming blow. JOHTO smash. Izuku skidded back from the impact before smiling as he held out his palm, which twitched as an orange glow emitted from it. Overheat. With the power of the, Izuku fired a powerful cluster of burning strings at Hilda, who squatted down before rocketing into the air. Man, they are on a whole other level, Denki said. They're pushing each other constantly. Talk about hardcore. Taiyuka noted. Man, they're awesome. Itsuka smiled, Kanoko nodding excitedly in agreement. No way they were gonna make things PORRIG. Kiwaro Shihai shook his head. Komori-san, your mushroom puns are something else entirely. Hilda rocketed toward Izuku, preparing to crush him with her rear, but he used the descend a gravitational wave that pushed her back. Quickly, Hilda rearranged herself before firing strands from at Izuku, slingshotting herself toward him. Better dig your feet because I'm gonna send you flying out of this ring. Izuku smiled and used the to use as a massive barrier against Hilda, who bounced off it before flipping into the air and landing with a stomp. Izuku then held the scroll in front of him, having used it to absorb the energy of Hilda's impact. Restoration. Hilda saw the force blast rocketing toward her before grinning and then thrusting her belly out, creating a counterforce that cancelled out the other. Izuku stood his ground before seeing Hilda rush forward and hit him with a clothesline. Young Yasakani and young Midoriya are perfectly balancing each other out, Toshinori noted from the stands. Tsunade had left after receiving the news of Ingenium's injuries at Hasu General Hospital. Izuku got back up and rubbed his neck as he and Hilda stared each other down, smiling. No holding back. No holding back. Izuku then bit into his thumb and blew into it, enlarging it to giant size with the power of the as Hilda channeled OFA through her body, focusing all the power she could muster into her fist. Both of them then coated their powered-up fists in armament haki before lunging toward each other, Izuku pulling back before thrusting forward with all his might while Hilda flew toward him like a blazing cannonball. Gum Gum Elephant Gun. ARCEUS Smash. The two blows collided in midair, tearing up the arena and sending a massive shock wave across the stadium. Toshinori nearly fell out of his seat in shock when he recognized what Hilda had done. That girl pushed herself to the limit to make her own version of my United States of Smash technique. What a powerful assault. But there's so much smoke and wind I can't see anything. Midnight, what's going on down there? Present Mike called out. I can barely keep my eyes open. Midnight complained. I don't even know if either of them are still standing. Wait, I think the smoke is clearing. To everyone's shock, both Izuku and Hilda were still standing. However, Izuku had been knocked out of bounds while Hilda was nearly out but stopped by just an inch. Both of them were breathing heavily before Izuku fell to one knee, submitting in defeat. After that nail-biting scene, Midoriya is officially out of bounds. Midnight declared, the winner of this match is Hilda Yasakani. Holy shit, Hilda won. Ijiru cried. Hilda laughed as she fell on her big butt, a massive weight shaking off her shoulders before she helped herself up and made her way over to Izuku, helping him up to his feet. Nice work, Zuzu. One for all sure is something else, huh? Izuku smiled back. You can say that again ... but I'm feeling something else right now. Hilda suddenly scooped Izuku up in her chubby arms and held him close, going in for a passionate kiss. Her belly squished up against Izuku's middle while her breasts pressed onto his chest. Izuku's eyes widened from shock but soon accepted it, sharing the tender kiss with Hilda. Midnight couldn't help but coo at the adorable scene. After they broke the kiss, Izuku blushed and nuzzled into Hilda, his arms sinking into her blubber as she hugged him too. And that's it, folks, our crown champion of the UA Sports Festival. From Hero Course Class 1A, Hilda Yasakani. Present Mike cheered excitedly. It was a close match, 1 meter less, and Midoriya might have easily taken the title himself. Aizawa noted. And now it's time to relax and enjoy the award ceremony for UAS first-year students. Midnight announced. The podium came up, Hilda smiling proudly while standing in the first place position while Izuku was in second place and both Fumikage and Penny in third place. Hey, does anyone know where Ida went? Kirby asked. Apparently his brother is in the hospital, Denki said, but they contacted Tsunade-sensei to fix him up, or at least talk to him. What sort of villain could get the drop on Ingenium? Shoto wondered. The Ida family are some of the most respected heroes out there, venerated by their sidekicks and the public. The solemn air was broken with the light-hearted laughter of All Might, who arrived at Midnight's announcement. Behold, I am here, with the medals. All Might brought the 2 bronze medals to Fumikage and Penny, putting them on both their necks. Young Tokoyami and young Polendina, you both showed veritable power. Both of you kept your opponents on their feet and surprised plenty with the skills you demonstrated. All Might then turned to Penny. Though I sincerely apologize that your secret was exposed so suddenly, my girl. Penny smiled sadly. It was going to be found out sooner or later, Mr. All Might. Daddy's already planning a press conference to explain everything. Ah, good old Pietro, you certainly are a chip off the old block. The symbol of peace chuckled before giving both Penny and Fumikage a gentle hug before turning to Izuku. Young Midoriya, you truly gave a fantastic showing. You should be proud of how far you've come. Izuku smiled and accepted the silver medal before being pulled into a hug himself, tearing up slightly. Finally, All Might turned to Hilda. Young Yasakani, you and young Midoriya both showed what the future generation has to bring to the table. I just hope you don't intend to rest on your laurels. Hilda smiled. Not on your life, not with how close that last match was. Keep up that attitude and you'll go far. All Might chuckled, placing the gold medal around Hilda's neck before hugging her, making her squeal internally at being hugged by the #1 pro hero. You and Midoriya have made me proud, my girl. I have no doubt that you will become a wonderful symbol after my time fades, a pillar of support. And with your strength, you, Midoriya, and all your friends will inspire others to become pillars of peace. So stand tall. Hilda smiled, wiping a few tears away herself before pulling Izuku up and hugging him close like a teddy bear. All Might chuckled at the two before turning to the crowd. Well, they were the winners this time. But listen up, anyone here could have ended up in these podiums. It's just as you saw competing, improving each other, and climbing even further. The next generation of heroes is definitely sprouting. I just have one more thing to say. Everyone, say it with me. Everyone took a deep breath, excited to yell out the phrase that was UAS school motto. Plus Ultra. Great work. There was an awkward moment of silence before the audience began to boo at All Might for saying the wrong phrase, though all done teasingly. All Might himself stammered out words to defend himself, but it was already done. Izuku, Hilda, Penny, and even Fumikage couldn't help but get a good laugh out of it. After the sports festival, the students were given 2 days off from school to recuperate. Tenya had already left the sports festival to check up on his brother in Hasu. Tsunade had also been called over to help tend to his wounds. Tsunade-sama, how is my brother doing? Tenya worriedly asked as he sat in the waiting room. Tensei's recovering well. I was able to heal most of his injuries. His muscles suffered from some sort of paralysis during the fight. Not to mention I needed to use to replace almost 16% of his body's volume of blood. Tsunade explained. He's well enough that he can receive visitors. Your mother is with him right now. Tenya didn't waste a second to run into the room Tensei was staying in, seeing him in bed looking well enough but in a somber sort of way. Hey, little bro. Tensei smiled sadly. Sorry ... your big brother lost. I'm just happy to see you alive, Tenya said, holding his brother's hands in his. Tensei frowned. I may be alive. For certain values of it, Sister Sage was able to heal the worst of my injuries, but my legs are gone. They can't move anymore. No, Tenya gasped, his eyes widening in horror. Who did this to you? Why, it was the hero killer, Tensei revealed. I tried to stop him from murdering a pro hero. She was so young, probably just graduated ... and I failed to save her. He got the best of me and took me out before I could even realize what was going on. The hero killer ... but why? Tenya asked. Tensei frowned. Before I lost consciousness, I heard him say something about how heroes today are corrupt, only caring about fame and fortune. I also managed to hear him mention that only All Might was worthy of stopping him. Tenya's fists tightened. That's rubbish. If money was all pro heroes cared about, they could have easily gotten any other job. Those men and women are out there fighting because they believe in what they're doing. Tensei nodded. That's why I decided to go into early retirement, to send a message to Stain. He deliberately left me alive because he considers me an exception to his rule, but he still injured me to send a message that he never lets a target escape, alive or dead. He likely didn't realize that he could have crippled me for life, ending my career. Tenya looked saddened. He could understand Tensei's reasoning, but it still hurt all the same to see his brother, the man who inspired him to be a hero himself, being forced to go into retirement, even if willingly. Suddenly, Tensei put a hand over his. Tenya ... this is why I want you to carry on my mantle. Tenya was left shocked but kept a gentle look on his face and nodded. I will, brother ... but I also need to make my own name as well. The friends I've made at UA have helped me learn one thing. I must become my own hero on my own merits. Tensei smiled. That's the spirit, little brother. Shoto took a deep breath as he stood in front of the hospital room where his mother, Rei Todoroki, was staying. He was surprised to see Ben and Penny had decided to join him as well. Hey, I still feel bad about the things I showed you, Ben said. I know I can't undo what I made you see, but I figured I'd be here to show my support. Shoto sighed and nodded. Thank you, Torkiroshi. You too, Polendina. Penny smiled. It's our pleasure, friend Shoto. The three walked into the room. Rei looking out the window of her room before turning to see her youngest son there and smiling that very same smile Shoto remembered from his childhood. Shoto, the Midoriyas, Bakugas, and Yasakanis had invited Ochako and her parents to dinner to celebrate the end of the sports festival. Ochako was honestly surprised and touched at her family being invited, even more so when Shanks offered to pay for everyone. I actually passed out twice during the sports festival, Inko admitted, mostly due to dehydration. I swear, those tear ducts of you and Izuku have to be a secret quirk of their own. Mitsuki laughed. Your classmates are crazy, my boy. Garp laughed, slapping Izuku on the back. The next generation is a good crop of fine heroes to be for sure. Shanks chuckled. Yuta sent a message. She said she wished she was there to see it in person herself, but she was busy with homework over at Ketsubatsu. She said that seeing it on a screen didn't do it justice. Bet I can eat more than you, Hilda said to Kirby. In your dreams, sister. Izuku and Katsuki laughed as they cheered their girlfriends on in their impromptu eating contest. After dinner, they all watched a replay of the sports festival on TV. It was great to get some downtime because very soon new challenges would be thrown at Class 1A.